Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food?
Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp,
tofu, and rasta pasta?
Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
in downtown Atlanta.
For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992
or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com.
For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant.
Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time consuming. That's why when it comes
What's up? Today is the 3rd of January 2020.
Of January?
Of June. It's one of them. So hey, welcome to Random Thoughts with DVP. I'm your host DVP. It's 6:02 and we about to get some things started. If you've been invited to the show, if you join in whenever, we're gonna talk about some of the things that's going on. But while we waiting for a couple of more guests, I'm gonna give you my little quick monologue. I hope y'all are all doing well. I hope y'all like everything that y'all are seeing. What I want to say specifically before we get started though, when you make demands don't come with. When you say I demand something, you can't say I would also like. A demand is a demand, but when you demand something, your demands kind of got to be in line with what it is you want. And as we see things, understand, even for the people who look like they're who are doing us good, it's still political season. They're still trying to get your votes. And it's incumbent upon us, even my guests, to inform you when you're being led astray. They're giving you political optics for something that is total BS. There's a post going on right now with, I don't know the women do it because I don't ever get it, with the I build brothers up, I won't tear a brother down. And I would love to say that I'm a part of that, but I'm not. Because if you know me, if I think you are an infiltrator or you're doing damage to our race, I will call you out. So I can't say that I protect my brothers. I don't. I protect brothers who are doing right. And that's just kind of the way it goes. My hashtag for 2020 was about accountability and responsibility, but we've changed. I've added some other things to that. We are gonna be agents of change. There's no need to keep fussing and crying and talking about what if and what we should have done. Do something. Do something. Even if I don't agree with the something you're doing, do something that makes you feel better about yourself. That means you are a part of the solution. That don't mean being quiet. Don't mean nothing. I want people to quit saying, "Oh, if you don't speak up on this, you're a part of it." Realize that other people have other things going on. I talked to a couple of people who have personal tragedies. Somebody's brother got killed. This ain't their top priority now. So let's stop saying that if they don't say something, that they are, they part of the problem. They're not. Sometimes other people just got other stuff going. And that's okay. We have to accept that. Sometimes the things we got, we can't give way to what's going on or what's current or what's hot. Because, I don't know, what's that thing called that we live in? Life. There's a whole life thing going on. And people got to do what they got to do. All right? So, I ain't going to waste y'all time with a lot of meism. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce my guests. We're going to talk about some things. This is a free place to chat, ask your questions, just be respectful. I can tell you up front, even with the people who are going to be on the show with me, we don't always agree. And that's not the point. The point is to educate and inform and learn. I'm going to tell you some things that suck, but guess what? They are truths in life, but they suck. And there are things that we eventually have to change, but they're not going to change in the next 20 minutes. They may not even change in the next 20 months. But at some point, they have to change. I was watching MSNBC, and I forgot the lady's name, who's part of social reform. She said she's been working on social reform and police reform since '94. What's taking so long? What's taking you so long? But again, a lot of people don't understand what police unions have the power to do and why certain things are. So, without further ado, in the chat, in the inbox, yeah, and that's where we're gonna go with that. So, Roy, can you give them all a screen and let them introduce themselves?
Yeah, just start talking.
Barbara, go ahead. You go first.
Yay me. Hey everybody, I'm Barbara White. I'm in Los Angeles, actually on the outskirts of Los Angeles, but Los Angeles County nonetheless. I'm in business management in my real life, but I'm very active in the community, work with Color of Change, very active in getting people registered and voting because I feel that's so important. And I am very passionate about the law and how it applies to Black people. So I do spend a lot of time doing research, imparting information on people, just trying to keep people abreast of things. I have children and grandchildren that I want things to get better for. So I spend a lot of time. I was up late last night because I live about 30 miles from downtown LA. And we have a little group here, but we're like 5% of the population. And I'm so disturbed by the stuff that I saw on there, but that's something I'll deal with later. But I'm here, ready to discuss everything. Glad to see all of you, and thank you again for the invite. And I'm anxious to be a change agent. I'm here.
LeBron?
Hi, my name is LeBron Sperling. My background, real briefly as possible. I started my law enforcement career, in fact, and essentially I was in special operations in some form or fashion for the entirety of my career. Actually, I was trained by our host at some point in my career, so our history goes some ways back. Also, in addition to that, I'm a graduate of John Marshall Law School. I do have a law degree, and I spent a majority of my career as a hostage negotiator in specialized units such as quick response force, active shooter response, and special weapons and tactics. So my goal in all of this is to take my understanding of what law enforcement is and should be, and as we apply it to our current political climate, really lay out some real goals so that people's expectations can fit within those parameters. Part of police reform, I believe, requires us to have some realistic expectations before we present the solution. So that's part of being an agent for change, and I'm here to do just that. Yeah, I do that.
So who's next?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Is that Mo? Hello, Mo.
There.
Can we hear? Is Mo there?
Yeah. What's going on, brother?
No problem. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, Mo Triplet. The best thing to describe me, you can think about the word math. I am a mentor, I'm an author, I'm a tutor, I'm a humanitarian, and I spent 2 years writing a book on police brutality. I researched all the cases from 2014 to 2016 during that time where we had a very treacherous situation going on. And my main goal was to immortalize those cases as well as give us some documented information on exactly what occurred and some of the things we could do to solve those problems and also dispel different myths. So I'm here today to help educate along with all the brothers and sisters here.
Miss Trina, can you unmute yourself? She didn't hear me telling her to unmute herself.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Trina Marie. I'm Darren's better half. I'm here because I was forced to be here. I didn't even know what was going on. He just, like, you're going to be on the show today, so I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara.
How are you? Good to see you. Good, thank you.
Am I supposed to go now, D? D, we don't know what's going on with you. Apparently, you are muting yourself.
We're going to have to get a new host. He's going to be about to be out.
I think, it looks like he may not have been plugged up. I guess
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. There you go. So, should I do
an
introduction?
I ain't sure what's going on. I think Trina did it. All right, so the topic for today's shows are the protests, the demands, the blackouts, and the BS. Because we want to get through all of this, and everybody at some point has given me something to work with, and one of the first things I want to talk about are the protests. I do believe, and we'll find out how people feel about protests. I do believe that protests have a place. But within that place, when we protest, we have to want something. Other than that, we just, again, we peeing in the wind and want people to understand what we won't tell them. Protests need to have defined parameters. Why are we protesting? What is it we expect to gain from this? If you're doing it just to be mad, to me, it's kind of a waste of energy. People love to bring up the Montgomery bus boycott, and like most things, they do it without research. The Montgomery bus boycott worked simply because they took 1 year to plan it. They made sure that they took care of the poorest groups, because if you think about us, we are a minority. The majority of us are not well off. If we're going to protest something, we have to make sure that we don't cause those who are less fortunate to miss money, or else they cannot participate. We can talk about all the humanitarian things and what we believe in and what we want. When it comes to feeding your family or fighting for a cause, most people are going to pick feeding their family. So when we protest, we have to do it. We have to do it with an agenda. I'm going to let you guys say how you feel about it, and then we'll talk a little bit more, because I want you guys to get into it. And I want to go to Mo first, because he's written a couple of books about it, and this is one of the things that we've always said we were going to talk about.
All right. Y'all ready? Y'all can hear?
Yeah. How do you feel about the protest, Mo?
Yeah. So this is a complexity in there. A lot of people like black and white. Sometimes you're in the gray area. Let me explain. All right. So there was a time where we had to deal with civil rights, right? So we had a couple of men out in the forefront, pushing for civil rights for us. We had Malcolm and Martin, right? I'm gonna tell you, my philosophy is that you needed both of them. Okay. Martin's philosophy was nonviolence. Malcolm was protect yourself by all means necessary. I can tell you right now, if you didn't have one or the other, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. So the people that saying both, I'm not advocating to go mess up somebody's business, but you know what? That's probably going to happen if you have, the demonstrations like we have today. That's my feeling on it. I feel we have to have both in order to make that change.
And with that being said, because I'm glad you brought that up, because I keep trying to get people to understand, we need to have as many different paths to success as possible. Just because people don't agree or choose to go about it different ways, we got to stop calling each other names. Because in today's society, either Martin or Malcolm would be a coon for not following the other one, and that's our destructive mentality. Me and Mo can want black people to rise to the top. Mo has a way, LeBron has a way, Darren has a way, Barbara has a way, Trent. We all got different ways. Nobody is wrong, and we don't have to all stand together. We need to let that mentality go that we all have to do. There's nothing that we all have to agree on. It doesn't happen in households. It ain't gonna happen in the world. But we have to have a common goal. And we have to have ways to get there. If Barbara's way is blocked, if we all follow Barbara, then we're all stumped. If Barbara's way is blocked, then LeBron got a team. And we have to understand that mentality. That's why the Malcolm-Martin combination worked so well. And it's crazy that Malcolm was actually not as violent as people seem. Malcolm was about intimidation and numbers. Malcolm would do things to let you know that we see you. Martin was more of the diplomat. He was Obama. He was willing to talk to anybody and try to come up with a logical solution. Malcolm was more like, hey, you know, we see you, and this is who we are. And you know, and people like to quote his by any means necessary. And I was asking, quit saying that Malcolm never killed anybody. Quit bringing up the guns and stuff. Malcolm did say, though, if they send us to the hospital, we send them to the cemetery. And there's nothing wrong with that. Barbara, tell me your stance on the protest.
But they thought that he would, so they kept made a little standoff. And
go ahead.
I'm a person that's black and white. I'm a little bit of Malcolm, a little bit of Martin, probably a little more Malcolm. Because if I could still run as fast as I did when I ran track in school, I'd probably be downtown throwing rocks. That's just my personality. But, you know, I'm older now. I'm a little bit wiser. But I think every avenue, as long as we're going to the same place, like you said, and we discussed that in the last time that we spoke, we're not all going to try to get there the same way. The goal is to get there. Protests have to have some kind of meeting. In the midst of everything that's going on with all the rage that I saw, I just don't know how anybody could take a minute to say, hey, let me stop and figure this out. They just acted on it because, and I understand, it's so hard to see a person. We weren't as shocked as white America, I don't think, because we knew this stuff happened. You know, we knew it happened. We didn't actually see it, but to see somebody to show such adamant disregard for a life, that you would stand on there with your knee on their neck, with your hand in your pocket, like you're waiting for an Uber, and the smirk on your face means you don't give a damn about a damn in life, and you didn't think that there was anything that was going to happen. Whoever you work for has made it clear to you in your mind that you're not going to be prosecuted. You know, so when you see stuff like that, you wonder how deep does this run, that this man with me here, he has a body cam, the 3 other officers have body cams, the restaurants have security cam, and you're still doing this because you have no fear. You know, you have no fear. So at that point, I think that enraged people. That just enraged people at the thought, like, how dare you? And white people are out there because I think for a long time they thought we were making stuff up. They could not believe that we were actually going through the things that we say that we're going through, but they saw. So that's why we have them included in this so heavily, I believe. You know, they're very heavily entrenched in this because this is the first time. We're not traumatized by it. We're traumatized by the whole 400 years that we've been here. This is their initial traumatization. So they are really just trying to figure their way out. Oh my gosh, this really happens to black people. But I think that there's different ways that you can do something. I'm a person that believes in protests. I organize some protests, peaceful. You know, like they say, I can be as peaceful as you let me be. But I do think there's an outside faction that is basically trying to discount us as a people and make it easier for people to say, see, this is what happens. This is what they do. And this is why we do what we do. But there's nothing that's going to ever, for me, excuse this police officer or the people that stood there that worked under the color of authority to allow this man to do this, and nobody tried. Nobody. Just having a person down like that on their stomach with hands behind their back, that's dangerous. That's why they turn you on your side. So why would you add the extra to that unless, you know, I think he just wanted to kill him. And I think that was his mission. I don't think it was like, I'm going to hold him down and teach him a lesson. I really feel like his intent was, because he didn't have nothing to do with the hands in the pocket. You know, he was.
And I'm gonna stop you because you get into the BS portion because I want to say why certain things happen. I want to just stick with the protest right now. But yeah, you're covering the part of the BS stuff.
Okay, but I'm a person that believes in organized protests. I think that they're useful, as we've seen. I don't think if people had gotten out there so strongly that they would have acted like they did. They may have, just because it was such an egregious act. I don't think they would have. So I am a person that believes in peaceful protesting. I don't believe in the portion, but I think when you get out there in that frenzy and everything, you got a lot of young people out there. Those are the casualties of it. You know, I don't believe in it. A little bit, you know, like when I see it, I'm kind of closing my eye, looking out of the corner of my eye with the looting and things like that, because of course that, even though we're not the only ones participating, we're the only ones they talk about it when they say the thugs. So that's my stance. I do agree. I do believe in protests, and like I said, if I could run faster, I'd be downtown throwing rocks.
And part of, and people say, oh, if you're upset about the protest, but you didn't say nothing about this, and you know, when people were first asking me about it, and I said, give me a minute to digest some information so I can speak intelligently. My biggest issue with the protest, and the only way I can break this down is with car insurance. When we get car insurance, we get the highest. We go for the highest deductible because it's the least payment. And when we were tearing up people's businesses who shouldn't have been torn up, saying that they can rebuild because they got insurance, if they got a $10,000 deductible and they ain't worked since this year, we're hurting them for the wrongest of reasons.
Right, but
I don't condone violence, but if you're gonna do it where it's appropriate. There are businesses who have exhibited racist tendencies. Why not? If you're gonna do something destructive, why not target your destruction so that it makes more sense?
Rage doesn't have a direction. Rage doesn't have a direction, unfortunately.
And I disagree. When you're mad, you know who you're mad at. You know what you're mad about. Because that's what we always say. What do we tell people? I didn't sleep with you last night. Don't take your rage out on me. So if we're trying to make a point,
but you had to tell them that. They didn't know that initially. They knew that initially, but you had to remind them. So like I said, rage goes wherever it goes. Like water, if it's an empty room, water goes wherever.
But then if we take that approach, then we can't discount the infiltrators. Some of the infiltrators were put there to do certain things.
They were there with purpose.
Exactly. Which again goes to the protest and the planning stage.
It's two different things. Things.
Right, which is why protests should be planned so that you can account for these. Other than that, if you got people who want to help you out, but you just cause them a further financial inconvenience, they can't fully help you out now because they got a whole different set of problems that they got to deal with. It's no different than when Black Lives Matter blocked the trucks on 85 that time, and all those truckers who were initially honking were upset because they can't get paid now because they can't make the deliveries on time. We have to look at unintended consequences because we can make a point to the other America, but if we further divide ourselves, that's what makes us become more divisive. And yeah, everybody can't be level-headed and in the moment and look at things, which is why we have to be more. We have to come up with agents of change, like we talked about. So when something happens, we got plans that we can shoot out to people, so that we're not inadvertently destroying our own selves in order to prove a point that we don't need to know. I don't want nobody burning my house down. If they'd burn my house down, I would no longer support this because now I got to do something different. And those are the little things we got to look at. That's why I say I'm all for protesting. I'm all for marching. It just needs to be done with a purpose. To do it haphazardly is, I tell people when I teach them how to fight, anybody who's mad, I can easily beat, because when you're fighting mad, you're fighting reckless. You're not paying attention to little things. And I asked, who's the greatest boxer of all time? Muhammad Ali. He wasn't a knockout artist. He sat there and counterpunched and waited for you to do stuff. He let you burn your energy, then he attacked. We have to have that same mentality when we want something. We have to have a goal in mind. If I want Mo to do something for me, I can't keep slapping Mo upside the head and thinking I'm gonna wear him down. At some point, Mo gonna get tired.
Try it. Let's see.
I can use Mo because he's my boy. And when we're protesting, like I said, we know, most of us knew what the message was. I'm here in Atlanta. I saw what I saw. I'm from here, and I listened to what people said. And I had a couple of my friends who are activists and were part of it. They called me and said, "Hey man, don't be mad at us." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "Because I know what you're gonna call me and cuss me out about." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you saw them women and kids." He said, "That was people from another state. We told them not to bring any women or kids to this, but they had another agenda, and we couldn't filter them out quick enough. And some of them look like us." I do believe there were some businesses in there who saw an opportunity to go ahead and destroy their business so they could get that. But it's like, how do you point these people out to everybody else when you go in with a half agenda? You've seen some of the police departments, they put up barriers and they gave the people the direction to go. And everything went hand in hand. And that's kind of where sometimes, even though the police ain't who you want to work with, sometimes you got to make deals with the devil.
I mean, sometimes they are. Sometimes
hey, so I want to say something because, I have a slightly different view on protest. While I think they do have a place, I am definitely an advocate of the overall process of why we're doing it. I think the difference in what we're seeing today and what happened in the past is that and D, this is what we talk about. Every protest had a purpose. What are we protesting when we walk out here today? What are we protesting today? What is the result? Right now, all we're doing is protesting as a reaction to something that has happened. We're not going out there with no type of agenda, no type of demands, no type of anything. We're not looking, we don't see, and this is just my opinion. So if I'm wrong, I tell people all the time, please show me where this information is. Please show me where this stuff is happening. Because, and I think people would say that most people are talking about, oh, we're protesting now because we want the cops arrested. Okay, so what were you doing to that end? How did it turn into, and believe me, you know I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I know they put people in the midst of those groups to create the trouble, to create the problem, so I get that. But you've got to, Ernest saying protest only shines a light on the issue. Yeah, no, but see, that's the problem. Protest shouldn't just shine a light. A protest, when we start doing things, this is the biggest challenge that we have as a people, and this is why they look at us and say, listen, you got 3 news cycles at most with black folk. If you can get to a 4th news cycle, you have created something major. But normally we got 3 news cycles and we on to something new. We're on to something different, and they understand that about us because we never have a defined goal of what we were trying to do. If people are in these cities protesting, they should have been, you know what they should have been? They should have been on going towards their mayors, going towards their governor's houses and being like, we want you to put pressure on these Milwaukee people. I mean, it's not Milwaukee, but these Minnesota people.
Minnesota.
We want you to put pressure on them because they need to do some stuff before we start acting up. You know, before it gets out of hand and start seeing it. Because right now the world is looking at what Minnesota is doing. And the U.S. has been in the front of that. And so now people all over the world are doing the same. They're protesting, they're doing this stuff. And it's like, you know, again, what are black people asking for? What do we want?
But and one of the first things when we were looking at it, and Trina's like, well, if you don't approve of that, what would you do? And I was like, well, if I got that many people, I'm going to the Dollar Tree and get 300 flashlights, and we going to sit in front of the mayor's. We going to sit in front of the mayor's house, and we going to all shine the light at her house to let her know we see her and demand an action. We want a transparent investigation, and we want it now. But again, that comes from the educational portion of it, because as we talk about officers getting fired and charged and them skipping due process, and LeBron he's an attorney. When you skip that, I don't care what the scenario is, you open up a back door for them to come back with a vengeance.
Because but that needs to change.
See, the now.
That is absolutely what needs to change. It's not that this is what they do. That's something that needs to change. So they can't do that.
Exactly. But if you don't know that, you fall for in the moment. And you don't get what's going to happen in the end, because as Roy said, we got 3 news cycles. And we were watching MSNBC. The officer that killed Tamir Rice came from another department. Nothing could be done. Absolutely. Because we don't.
But that again needs to change. That's the thing.
You're right. But listen to me, Barbara. It needs to change. It can't change today. And so that's where some of the frustration comes from. Some changes, I said in the beginning, are not going to happen within 24 hours. That's where we have to have a plan and tell people this is what's legally got to happen first. Understand this so we can start making effective change. You can't.
But I think you have an unfair assessment that people think like you think, and that's part of the problem, that we all want people to think and do it at the level that we do things. And that's an unfair assessment, and it's unfair expectation of people. We need to do better to get information out.
And we also have to understand that the main people that started the protest were young people. You know, young people, they're not going to think as maturely, or they might not even have the knowledge of where to go to get things started. They just know they pissed off. And like Barbara was saying, is like water. Just you get pissed off, the rage, and you just out on wherever. Because we were talking earlier, Darren, and I was saying, like, damn, it would have been nice if they would have, go to the white people neighborhood and tear their stuff up. Same time, I understand, like, when that rage hits you and you piss off, you just explode right there wherever you are, and where they were just happened to be in their own neighborhood, and it just went from there, because as you can see, they went from the neighborhoods and now they marching to downtowns, and they're going by the city halls or wherever they're going. I don't know where they're going. Don't let me make up stuff, but they're not in like residential neighborhoods anymore, but it's a bunch of young people. And when you were talking about Malcolm X, or the people that follow Malcolm X, and and Martin Luther King, at least they had like some type of they had leader after leader after leader after leader.
We don't have that.
Some type of way. We have not had like any kind of real civil rights type leader in a long time. So they just don't know.
Well, I just have one more thing. Okay.
So hold on, let me just jump in real quick and just say this about the protest. Personally, I love the fact that our young people are actually doing something. And this is the first time that I've seen such a mass group of people geared toward one issue at the same time across the world. So I think that instead of what we have to be careful of in terms of our generation is not to put out that fire, but just redirect it. Because it was not an organized protest with some end goal in mind. This was just an outcry. And it was an outcry that was heard by cities all over the world and countries all over the world. So now it is us. We do not have a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X because there is no one person anymore that will take on that role and that risk of martyrdom for the sake of our generations. All of us have to be our individual MLK and Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. That's what the next steps are.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what we have to educate. I don't expect them to think like me. When we first met, Barbara, and you were, and you were my enemy, and I was just trying to tell you how some things work because there's a perception.
So you were my enemy.
Oh, I was your enemy. You would shoot me cyber birds. But even like sometimes when me and Trina talk, and she'll say this is this, and I hear what she's saying, and it's like, okay, it's a slow process. We have to educate people so that they can make. We got these young kids, they fired up, they got the energy that me and Roy ain't got no more. But we can teach them. So when you make demands, this is what you should be expecting, and we have to educate them on what's real. Because I'm watching some of these things now, and some of the things that they're expecting and demanding, even though they're realistic expectations and demands, legally they will never ever happen right now. So when we're doing this, because we caught in the middle of a voting cycle, so we getting bamboozled by some people who want to be reelected. They're gonna say what we want to hear so they can get elected, and we're gonna miss it because I mean, I saw a couple of people saying all the right things, but because I'm looking at a different angle, I know everything they're saying is BS. It's to get votes in June and July so they can win. And this is where we have to educate them. What they did is what they did. Ain't nothing we can do about that. But hey, think about this next time, which is why when we do the agent of change, it's about having plans so we can disseminate them as quickly as possible. So that hey, this is what y'all need to do first. Let's look at this. Let's pull a Malcolm. I don't want to destroy a business, but the businesses that we know are counterproductive to us, let's take people there and sit in the parking lot. Let's take people there and do this. Let them know that we see them. That's what that is part of what intimidates people, knowing that we see them and they can't just act arbitrarily and capriciously like they've been doing in the past. But that's the education process.
But we also have to understand. I'm sorry, but we also have to understand. Go ahead,
Barbara. Go ahead.
Okay, but we also have to understand, and people always say, "Well, how come Black people tear up their own neighborhoods?" And I haven't had people ask me that question. But you have to understand the hold that the systemic racism does. They know as soon as they go outside, it's going to be a fight. So they do what's easier for them because that's where they are. They tear it up recklessly. They shouldn't. Now here, because white people were involved, I really believe it would have been in South Central or in LA somewhere, but they were involved. They took it to Melrose. Honey, they tore Melrose up. They did. But when it started with the young people out there pissed off, their thought was not to go sit in front of the mayor's house like I would have done.
I got that.
Every time they left, I would have been sitting out there. When they left, went in the house, got in the car, I would have been sitting there. But that wasn't their thing. They tore up there. But in the back of most people's mind, because of systemic racism and how pervasive it is, they know they still are doing something with some trepidation. Like, I know if I do this, I know this is going to happen. So those are the things. We have such a mind hold on a lot of people. Our mind is so entrenched, like it's in jail, of what we can and can't do. So we do push to the bounds that we know are comfortable, and we can do some things before we get the pushback, and that's our own stuff.
So I was wondering, because you were talking about how we need to educate them and we need to let them know, take this step. Are you speaking for the next protest? Because like right now, this one is going on. So how do you get that message to them now in the midst of this one?
Well, in the midst of this one now, which is why You made me get up and start doing stuff I didn't want to do because I'm old. But Miss, now we got to come up with plans because they can only get so much done in the next. Let's realist in the next 90 days. We can start planning for what they should be expecting because to do this police reform change, that's gonna take 2 years. The police union is not gonna give that up willingly. The powers that they got, they're not gonna freely give them up. The mayors and the governors ain't gonna freely give up power. I mean, and this is why when the lady was talking about she been trying to do this since 1994, these are things that we got to start demanding. And as Roy was talking, even Barbara, when we start talking about voting, what did Malcolm say? Ballot or the bullet. Don't waste them just blindly. If somebody's not giving us what we want, we got to do different things. So when we start making demands from the ballot people, we need to know what it is so they don't just tell us things we like. Me and Roy are going to talk about reparations on another show, but there are realistic things that we can ask for and demand, and they should be done within 2 years because it doesn't take 2 years to change certain laws. And if we know a law is so outdated, it should be able to get done on the next cycle, which would mean it could be done in a year. But that's a theoretical, long-term project. We need to let them know there is an end game, and this is what it needs to be. They need to take blanket police immunity from every cop. Every cop,
that's for sure. That's the first thing that people do.
Right. Anytime there's a killing, it should automatically go to the federal level, not even to the state. There should be a public investigation unit at the fed level to investigate every cop killing. Period. That way, you take away all the biases. Just because you take it to the state, I know GBI agents, so you still ain't doing me no justice. But how many federal agents am I gonna know? So that's something that can be done post haste. They should never do that. And these things should just be done automatically. As soon as it comes up, boom, we already know this is where it's going. We're gonna do the administrative leave, explain to people what that means, so they don't get upset about that and why it's got to be done until we change the police union laws that say they got to do this, this, and this. And once we give them those ingredients to the cake, you understand better why you can't do certain things when somebody tells you why. If they just don't tell you, and we'll use administrative leave for the purpose of this argument. As soon as people hear they put on administrative leave, everybody want to know, why is he getting paid? Fair Labor Standards Act say if he's earned that time, he's going to get paid, so he's going to get that money one way or another. And because police have an extra course of due process, before you can start doing stuff, let's get this all the way. Let him burn his money, but he's here. And so until we get this National Police Registry, where any cop who quits under investigation or who does something, they're on this and they can't get another job in law enforcement or government ever, they can still bounce from state to state, like the guy who killed Tamir Rice. He came from an agency where he was about to be fired. He didn't have to divulge that information, and they couldn't check it. So these are things that we're looking for in the future. What they can hope for right now is, there needs to be a transparent investigation. Yolanda, somebody else mentioned, I always talk about these citizen review boards. For those of us who can't be cops, we got to stop avoiding jury duty. I would tell all the young people, go ahead and register to vote. Go ahead and understand jury duty. Go be a part of citizen review board so you understand, so you can be a part of the change. Everybody likes fussing. It doesn't require a whole lot other than time. Let's be accountable and responsible. When you find out something, share it with the people. Because, as both you guys said, we don't have anybody who's sharing information with us. So we're all left to act emotionally because that's all we know. I'm so pissed off. This keeps happening over and over and over again, but nobody's ever changing the system. So we left with the same system that, as you said, Trina, as everybody else said, the system was never intent for us. So why do we depend on it so much? At some point, we got to make the system work for us. And we have to know what it is that we're asking for when we do this. Hey, we want this. These things should be fair and equal. We pay taxes just the same. So this guy should be doing this. When there's a punishment to be done, and that's where Barbara, one of my favorite people now, when she gets into the researching portions and the fact finding, she can come back with stuff. Trina can give her input. LeBron, everybody gives their input, and we come up with something that will pretty much stand the test of time. We need a national standardization of all laws. I shouldn't have to figure out what murder 1, murder 2 is versus Georgia doesn't have. Georgia only has murder. Other places got 3 degrees of murder, which is insane. Because how do we do it? Barbara's murder in California ain't the same as my murder in Georgia. So we can be talking, but we talking about 2 totally different conversations because the laws are so different. Yeah.
Dan, let me just say this real quick too, man, on that issue. So the idea that we have all these different people that are getting and supporting this particular issue about Black Lives Matter, and particularly with George Floyd, we have to think past party lines. We have to think past race.
Exactly.
Right? So if everybody has a clear expectation of what it is that we know needs to change in policing, then we can all go to our polls and to our representatives and say, hey, man, whoever can solve this as my primary issue, then they get my vote. And then if everybody makes this the primary issue, then we can get some traction. Right now, this is the primary issue for some folks, but it's not the primary issue for others. The economy is the primary issue for others, or healthcare is a primary issue for others. Well, Black people are really affected by all of those others, so it has to be our primary issue. And now we have allies that can now join that fight as long as they know what to ask for. Otherwise, we're just making noise in the street.
Right. Let me jump in.
And the downfall to this is the timing, because now,
can you hear me?
We're voting this month. They ain't got to come up with a plan. And we go to the polls before we vote, which we can't avoid now. We should have heard some detailed plans on how they make changes. We can't get that now, so we kind of stuck in a 2-year limbo. Because whoever gets elected, we can't force them to make their agenda now. They can say they can, but how they gonna come up with a plan right now to let us know what it is so we can look at it? It's good timing because of other bigger issues, but for the local issues, it's really bad timing. But every candidate, when they come to these churches, they should be able to tell us how I'm gonna make your situation better. How I'm gonna use Barbara. I don't know if she got kids or not, but Barbara, this is why you shouldn't have to be worried about your son getting pulled over at night. This is this. Most apartments who have cameras have standardized things that says when that light come on, the camera's supposed to come on. I can tell you, I've looked at several agencies that officers are subverting the cameras, and nothing happens to them.
And that should be instant termination. If you don't have your camera on, and that's you're supposed to, if you don't turn it on, you should go. I mean, it shouldn't even be a question.
They turn them on, but what the officers in New Orleans was doing is when they walked in front of the car, they raised the hood of the car, so you couldn't see nothing. So they're finding ways to get around this, and management ain't doing nothing about it, which is why the problem is bigger than the officers.
Darren, so let me jump in on something here, because I wanted to miss a couple points, and I don't know. Can y'all hear me? First off,
yes.
Okay, so that means you just been ignoring me, but I'm not gonna go there on this one. So that's what I'm doing. But no, so because I actually want to reach back, and this is going to go to another conversation that you and I have had for years. What Yolanda said about the Citizens Review Board, that she's going to get on, and her son, what was the first thing she said her son said to her? I'm going to get you the names and badge numbers of cops that need to go. Well, one of the things that we have to start doing is we talk about changing the mentality. And I did my live on Monday. I did the first phase of my live. We talked about my 12-point action plan and what we needed to do. And part of this is we have to get engaged in these citizens review boards, and we have to get engaged in that process. But the other part to that is the first thing that we have to do in our community is we have to cut out this whole snitch mentality. And I was looking for your boy's poem because I wanted to play it today. But the idea, we first let's think about what snitching is. Let's get the reality of snitching. You can only snitch if you were involved in something negative or illegal yourself. That's somebody who was involved in it, telling on other people so that they can get a lesser term or a lesser thing. That's what it is. Because ultimately, if somebody does something to anybody in your immediate family, and I see it, you are going to want me to say something about that. The other part of that is that we have bad cop. D, you talked about this all the time, and I think that we don't even think about the logic of this situation that people say when they're doing this. We have friends who do dirt. If your friends know that you're not going to lie for them, guess what happens? Don't they stop doing dirt around you? Do people who do bad things continue to do them in front of you if they know that you're going to be like, yo, bro, no, don't ask me. Look, I got dudes that know Roy is not the one to use as your alibi for nothing. Because I'm not going to quantify, verify nothing. And so,
it's nice to sit here and talk about what snitching truly is among us and among the the mature crowd. But these young people that's in the streets right now, you can't make them grasp that.
But see, Trina, that's part of the Trina. That's the problem. That's the problem, though. If we can't get them in, we have to have those conversations with them. We have to get them to understand that difference, because the point goes all the way back to it. If none of these cops, if we know in the hood that cop Darren comes to the hood and slaps people around, beats people, take drug dealers' money. If we know that, but nobody reports it, guess what? It didn't happen. And there's absolutely nothing that goes into his record about that. When you make those reports, if you just go and make the report, it physically has to go in there that the reports were at least made that those things were happening.
So I've got to give a little pushback on this right here, and here's why I say that. Yes, you are correct. We definitely have to get past that mentality of not snitching and all that, but that may not be our best focus. The other issue is the police department has the responsibility to make sure that the process for internal affairs, for complaints, runs 24/7 and is available and adequate for the community that is served. So it's not necessarily our responsibility to make sure that we go and quote-unquote snitch or define snitching. Who cares what we define it as? We all need to make sure that the police department makes it available.
Right.
Have any of us even checked your local department to see what the internal affairs process is like for a complaint? Do we even know? How about introduce to these same young people, hey man, if you go on your phone and go on an app, you can file a complaint on that dude and it'll get recognized by somebody. They would do it just because they want to see what would happen. That's not snitching. That's testing out whether or not the system does what it's designed to do.
Well, and let me piggyback on that. I think one of the bigger issues is we got to get that street lie out where, if you tell on cops, nothing will happen. I don't know where that came from, especially here in Georgia, because cops, we don't send a bunch of cops to prison.
Seeing it happen every day.
But no, and what they see, no,
because it's not anything we made up.
Because they complaining to nobody. Barbara, when you ask, when people inbox,
the people that have complained to somebody, most of them what percentage would you say that goes somewhere? I mean, I'm asking you two who were law enforcement. What percentage would you say would go somewhere? Because I don't think it's very high. I don't think it's more than 20%.
Okay, this is what I asked you to do, Barbara. Ask your people how many of them filed an actual complaint and never heard back. Because when people inbox me and I say, well, who did you talk to? Because I want to know who you reached out to. It was like, I ain't never filed because I knew nothing was going to happen. We adopt that mentality far too easily. Again, we look at
from experience, though. It's from
experience, Barbara. Most people are not complaining because they believe we're already defeated. We believe ain't nothing gonna happen.
Most black people don't call the police.
Exactly, so they never filed a complaint.
Because when you come out, you call them out. If I call for my neighbor, prime example, I came through the gate to get my house. There's a new housing project right behind me. I look over there and I tell my sister jokingly, I see two white people over there at this empty property. Let me call the police. Jokingly, I say that. I'm not going to call them because I don't want them asking me, because it's just not a good interaction, and that needs to change. Me, even a mature, law-abiding, educated person, I don't want unless I need something that's just what we have in us. Now that I'm fighting against the stuff, I have a little more interaction. But before, people just don't, because it's just, how many times have you seen a person call the police? The white person is doing something, but they end up on the ground. That's not cool. So that's why it's the experience, not because of something that we have that's not a legitimate thing in our head.
And so that goes back to the rioting issue and the whole thing about the protest. So now our responsibility is to make sure that those same individuals that are rioting now have a clear and concise avenue to actually file a complaint. We don't know what to tell them because we don't know. And so we say that if you call police, nothing happens. We really don't know that it's an actual form that triages the complaint based on the severity. We don't know that this person had 4 other complaints in their file, and your 5th complaint could be the thing that makes the difference, because we just assume that nothing will happen, and we don't know where to point people.
And for our generation, why it's so important, look at who Lyndon B. Johnson was. Lyndon B. Johnson was a racist, but Martin Luther King went in and talked to him and got things changed. We can keep saying what we think will happen, but until we can put fact to it, if I sit back and say Trina won't feed me, and Trina says, well, you never asked me to cook, then whose fault is that? Is it Trina's for not cooking, or mine for not ever telling her what I wanted because I believe that she ain't? We have to stop with the belief. Once you do something and it doesn't happen, you can say it didn't happen. So yeah, I understand what you're saying about why we don't call the police in general. But when the police violate something and you don't tell anybody but your neighbor, You not expecting nothing to happen. That can't be. Internal affairs. I've been to a bunch of most internal affairs. I would say internal affairs is 75% great officers.
Yep.
They don't get a bunch of calls because nobody's telling them anything, and we can see we don't trust them. If you don't trust them, then you're never even giving the system a chance. It's kind of like me saying, because I had one bad black girlfriend, I ain't gonna mess with bad. You got to give everybody a chance. That way the system starts working. That's how cops in DeKalb County get convicted for killing homeless people because somebody told he's killing homeless people. Who would have thought? So at some point, we gotta let them know when you make these demands, you sit back with an expectation. When you make a complaint with internal affairs, let's just say all of us make a complaint. We sit back, and if we don't hear something in a week, we make that known. So then we can fix a problem. Right. But you can't fix a problem if you never address the problem. And this is where we can't keep saying what used to be. If we're gonna stay with yesterday, then we ain't gonna never move forward. So at some point, we gotta put the system. We gotta put it to the test so that we can fix what's wrong.
And let me ask this about when you say that with the system, and I know you and LeBron can answer this for me, because if I'm not mistaken, anytime you make a report, you're going to get at least a case number or something, correct?
So a couple things. The first question, to answer your question, is yes and no, because here's the bigger problem.
Okay.
Everyone only knows what they're experiencing. Right, so it depends on the department. Yes, you should get a case number. Yes, you should be able to, depending on what department you're in, you go and call 911, and some officer will respond and do a police report, no matter what you complain about. The cat is in the tree. Other places, an officer won't even show up to your house, depending on the nature of the call. Right, so yes and no. You should, but you don't always, because the situation may dictate otherwise.
Right. I mean, Atlanta won't come to your house if you've got a stolen car. They're gonna give you a report number and tell you to come down and pick it up later. So
wait. That was my question. My whole point of that was that if people, we have to make sure that, and to Barbara's point about this, in order, and to your point as well, to change this system, we've got to make sure that when there are certain reports made, when a citizen comes to the police to get a resolution, or at least to provide information for something, that there is a way to track that report that it was made. Right. And like you said, then follow up a week later. So what has happened? If nobody's getting back to you, even if nobody's getting back to you, you at least have something. Listen, this is my copy of the report. This is what I said to them. This is what I told them. Nothing is happening. But again, this is all part of the execution process that you were talking about, that you were mentioning, that we've got to get people to understand that this stuff takes time. There are some things, like I did my thing on Monday. I'm going to do another one. I'll probably end up either doing it late tonight or tomorrow. But the one that I'm going to do on Friday is going to be things that we can get to a presidential candidate, to both presidential candidates, really. Because, like I said, I do stuff across party lines regardless, because we want things done. It doesn't matter who's in office. And there are going to be things that those presidents, because I know the political process, I understand how it works. So we're going to ask them to do things in their first 100 days that are directed and impactful to the community immediately. There are certain things that they can do. And we talked, the one that you brought up, we were talking about the whole Voting Rights Act thing. Why are we still having to renew that every 25 damn years for black people to vote? No, change that. Do that in your first 25 days. And like I said, we are the only quote unquote group of people who don't go in with any demands. Joe Biden has already said that he is going to, in his first 100 days, he is going to make sure that he puts back into play the Obama era LGBTQ reforms that he made, that Donald Trump turned over. He said in his first 100 days they're going to do it. There have to be things that we can go into to get directed. The next point of that is that we have to start the process like you were talking about. And we've got to be able to get into the situation where we then start getting legislation written, getting people putting this stuff in there, and do it just like think tanks do. Most legislation, what most people don't realize is most legislation isn't written by legislators at all anyway. It's written by other groups. It's written by lobbyists. It's written by different people. They just hand it to the legislators. Put your name on it, get some buddies, and then you implement it.
So Roy, but check this out. So here's my thing though. You're absolutely right in terms of our presidential election and our expectations. But I'm saying, why do we have to wait on legislation when everybody that was a part of every protest across the entire country can easily contact their local jurisdictions to make sure that certain basic things are in place? And if they're not in place, broadcast that. Let that be known to the rest of the world that's now watching this issue. Because guess what? If I live in Atlanta and I've never experienced police officers doing things like putting their knees on my back where I can't breathe, but in Minnesota or in Milwaukee or Wisconsin or any of these other places, it happens all the time, then I don't believe they're telling the truth because that's not my experience. So we've got to streamline what the expectation is, and that doesn't have to go to the presidential election. That is a simple phone call to your police station and say, excuse me, what's your all's policy on, making sure that you're not conflicting with other agencies with felony cases. They're going to tell you to shove off, but you know what? You can share that with your community. What the response was.
Are you in the Agents of Change group? Just real quick.
No, he's not yet.
He's not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and let me say this.
I'll shoot a link because real quick, Darren. Let me say this. That's part of the plan. That the agenda thing that we started off with. Now, like I said, I've got that 12-point action plan. That's the first part of it because the truth about politics is that all politics are local. That's what people don't get about the process. The process has to be started in the local. Listen, the reality of politics that people don't get, politics is the only system where trickle up actually works. Meaning when you start doing it, because ultimately, if you get enough local municipalities doing something, guess what's going to happen? Exactly. The state legislature is going to say, oh, okay, you know what? We now need to put this into place on our level. If you get enough state legislators saying that, okay, we got to put certain things into place, guess what happens? It becomes a national issue. Politics is the only place that trickle up actually works. And we have to get people engaged in the entire process. So that is part of our plan. That's why the first 2 phases of my action plan, is 3 phases to it. That's why the first 2 have absolutely nothing to do with anybody outside of our communities. It's things that we have to do for us first to be prepared to go to that last phase where we start looking into legislators and we start pushing them to do certain things.
But let me say this to answer part of what Barbara said and LeBron. When we do these things with police departments, and I do understand where the distrust is. So when the complaint is being filed, we do need more community leaders so that they can be the middle person. Because I was working one day and a girl came up to me and she said, "Hey, the girl next door to me got murdered and I know who did it. What do you think I should do?" And I was like, "How do you know who murdered?" She said, "I saw it, but I'm scared to tell because he may come murder me." And I was like, "You don't think if he think he gonna come murder you anyway?" And she was in a conundrum. What do you do? Because she don't want to. On one hand, she know if I know a killer, I'm telling, because I believe you're gonna kill me next. Because killers kill. But for her to ask me that question in total seriousness, and then she gave me in detail how this was done, I called a friend from Atlanta, homicide investigations, and he was like, "How do you know all those details?" Well, hell, I'm standing right here with a witness who's afraid to say something because she's afraid that y'all gonna come to her door and ask her questions. Okay. And so I get that part of why we don't do certain things with internal affairs, even though that's on a different level. But at some point, when we start doing the Agents of Change things, and I want to welcome Jeremiah, when we have people who are willing to speak out and speak up, we got to go there and speak for these people. That's part of what we do. When somebody comes and tell me something, the officers that I had to go to court with, somebody came and gave me information. I tracked it to make sure it was legitimate. I handed it off to the feds because I shouldn't have been investigating it. But I wanted to see if it was legitimate before I turned it over because I don't want to just say, "Oh, well, somebody said this," and they don't get it. So when I gave it to them, they called me back 3-4 more times and verified everything. Next thing you know, we in court. But I gotta go. I never put my CI on the thing, and so we have to get back to that so that there is a comfort level, so that the people can have somebody to talk to if they're not comfortable. Because I'm not gonna knock it and say we don't know who's tied to who. I'm gonna say right now, yes, LeBron knows me. If LeBron was in internal affairs and he had to investigate me, do I think he would be partial? I think, knowing him, I think he would. But it's not beyond belief to think that he would be partial toward me because I trained him. So And that's why I don't believe he should be investigating. Anytime there's an investigation, it actually needs to go to another agency. Let other agencies investigate. Don't let your own people do it, because there are friendships that we know about, friendships that we don't know about. But in the meantime, we can't have people being afraid of the process. There needs to be a check and balance system. There needs to be a receipt system, so that when LeBron investigates me, he's got to put all his findings on paper and send it out, so we can see if he did a true investigation, or if he's like, you know what, that's my boy. I'm a trash this one because they're not gonna call back. We have to have that. We have to have that system of checks and balances.
That's my biggest issue with the Ahmaud Arbery case, because in that situation, that's a classic example of how the entire district and the district attorney's office went back to that old-fashioned good old boy system that we had a problem with back in the 60s. Like, how does that happen? As a professional, you're supposed to say, I can't not get involved in this right now. Don't wait until it gets exposed. You're the first person to say somebody else needs to prosecute this case.
But I don't think that's an exception. I think that happens a lot, when you do your own policing. It's just like if you come here to get one of my kids. I'm pretty law-abiding, so if they know not to do nothing because they're going, I'm going to take them to jail. I'm going to take them to jail. But you can't police your own police. That's obvious. Just a few things that we've said in the last couple of days. So what I wanted to say about the voting, one of the things that I'm working on is lists to show elected officials, people that need to change. People think of the presidential election as the only election that we have. We have so many things that fit so intricately in what we need that will affect us more closely than the president, that people skip all the time. Most people don't even vote. They don't vote for the DA. They don't vote for any of the stuff that's local. They say, I'm voting for the president, I'm done. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. I put up a list yesterday of, and the list that I found shows prosecutors, different states, who's in your district, when the next election will be. And those are things that people need to do to make good, good choices about things. And I think one of the things as agents of change we need to do is get information out there. People are going to have to be retrained of what they should do for them. Once they get past being scared, we have come to an impasse here. Maybe people will be open. Like, okay, they're holding them accountable. We hope. Maybe people will be open, but I think that people need to get out there and hit them and retrain people about what you should do, and that you do have rights, that you need to make sure that your rights aren't infringed upon.
And quick question. Let me hold on real quick. I don't think they're scared. I think they're more ignorant. They don't know the process. When I had a conversation with Jeremy yesterday, and Jeremy's an intelligent guy, but there's lots of things I was telling him that he didn't know. And we have to, and I don't think it's because he was scared. I think sometimes you just don't know, because those of us who aren't criminals don't know the criminal mind. They don't know the criminal system. And that's what we have to do, the education process, and explain to them why this is happening, why this is happening.
If you don't have information, you turn your TV on, you see something, that creates fear. Unfortunately it does. Like, I don't want no part of that. When you see the little girl in Miami that called because the white guy had the gun in her face, and you see her with her face in the dirt, people just don't. And I think that's one of the things that we need to do, is just making people aware of different things and making people comfortable, and having people go with people. Like, I'll go with you. I'm available. I'll make myself available, and I'll go with you, so that you're not afraid. And we need to do that. We need to partner up and do some things so that people know that you do have rights, and we're going to fight with you to make sure that you get your rights.
We need to create beyond police reforms, even with the DAs. Once we see that they're doing something, why do we have to wait 2 to 3 years to get rid of them? I mean, once we can prove a pattern, that should be something that can be done within 90 days to 6 months. They showing a pattern of behavior. The DA in Minnesota, we looked up his thing. He won't charge. He will not charge white cops. So if we know that he has a pattern of behavior, the same judge who did Castro case, Philando Castro, this is his pattern. But and he just won re-election, but nobody talks about it. So there's a point in time, as we do agents of change, and I thank you for what you were doing, we start making things public, because we got to start calling people out. I don't want to get in trouble, so we got to take a break, and then we get back. I want to introduce Jeremiah, because Jeremiah is 25 years old, so he's part of that community that we've got to get to, so that he can spread it to his people. So I want to get his input on something. So we're gonna take a quick break so that I don't get in trouble, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back.
to your auto, home, and life insurance needs. Make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching, hey, 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 motivation.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant-quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of...
All righty, we are back, and I got my voice of the future here now. He was a little late, you know, because I'm gonna get my little pettiness in. You know how young people are; they just come whenever they want to. But I got Jeremy, Mr. Bowtie in the place. He ain't gave me no tie yet, but I'm gonna let him slide with that. Jeremy, give him a little quick intro about yourself and what you do.
Oh, okay, my name is Jeremiah Woods. I go by Bowtie. Most
Damn, I call you Jeremy.
It's all good. It's all good. It's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. We're gonna trip about a couple of letters. Most people know me as Bowtie because of my custom bow ties that I sold. My book, which is Bowtie More Than Fashion and Fabric, which is an acronym that stands for being bold, optimistic, wise, tangible, impactful, and effective. So that's what most people know me as. Currently, I'm honing my skills as a community developer. with a special focus in sexual assault victims or sexual assault advocacy rather. So that's who I am. But at the core, before all of that, obviously I'm a person of color in this corporation we call the United States of America. So I have a vested interest in making sure that not only the people that are currently here, but my two sons and the people following behind me have a place that they can call home. So that's a little bit about me. You can find out more if you want to know more, but that's enough to get started.
Yeah, we're gonna get you there. So Jeremy, tell us, give us a problem that the young people are having that the old heads need to come together and get them a solution on.
I think there's a couple of issues. I know I'm gonna speak for me. I won't generalize. For me, I hear a lot of people, and I came in on the tail of this. We're talking about voting and the proper steps to go through. I think for people in my generation, we just don't see it. I know growing up, I heard my dad talking about voting. I heard my granddad talking about voting. I heard all these different people talking about doing these things. I heard the peaceful protests and all these different things. And I think that there's an overall mistrust of the system, the process, how it works, what it works, when it's supposed to work, what it working looks like, and to even kind of drive that point home, we often say we want justice, but I think the question has become, what does justice look like for us? Because if you ask judges and you ask elected officials, a lot of them will tell you that justice has been served in quite a few of these cases that we feel justice has been served. But from their perspective and their view, whether we agree or disagree, there is an elephant in the room that has to be addressed, that what justice looks like needs to be clarified on a number of issues in order for us to say that we want justice. So I hope I answered your question. But
and see, that makes so much sense as we're talking about standardization, because as I've looked at some of the sentencing things, I've noticed that even where we have mandatory minimums, a lot of times the mandatory minimum, which applies to judges, is totally ignored. It's totally ignored. The little kid that got convicted of the rape, how do you get probation? Because that's not part of the sentencing program. I ain't never seen that nowhere before. We're not talking about a mistake. We're talking about rape, and he's found guilty. And we, in addition to, when we talk, even though we talking about police reform, we gotta overhaul the whole judicial system. Mo, what state are you in?
Sure. Arizona.
So Mo is in Arizona, and they got their own sheriff out there who was doing his thing. Some of it was questionable, some of it wasn't. But we have to have standardization across the board for police, for reform, for sentencing, so that when we talk, me, Mo, and Barbara in different states are all speaking the exact same level of English. Murder in Arizona can't be 3 years, 12 years in California, and 50 years in Georgia. That makes no sense to us when we're trying to have an intelligent conversation.
And the judge shouldn't be able to change it in every state if there's a mandatory minimum. The judge said he didn't want to ruin that kid. I don't want to ruin his life, despite the fact that he'd ruined a child's life by rape. So they use their discretion. So judges can get kicked out too. That's why I'm saying voting at the local level.
And that's why we got to do it, because, as Jeremy was saying, his generation, which is our future, is losing hope, which causes them to act out because they don't see how the system can be fixed. And I get it. You can't blame them for being disgruntled. And this is why we have to step up. We have to. And I already picked Jeremy, so y'all got to find your own. Jeremy is one of the ones I'm gonna work with to make sure that the knowledge I got, this OG stuff, he can recycle it. He can use his universal translator to speak to his group, so that we get the same message, so that there is hope, and say, hey, this is what y'all got to do. Hey, let's try this guy's way. If it don't work, let's call him out. If it do work, let's fine tune it. But we can't just arbitrarily keep giving up on stuff because somebody else said it didn't work. And we got to share knowledge.
Here's the other thing too that we have to also think about. Even if every state differs in what we call a crime or even how we punish the crime, there should be an overarching theme in every jurisdiction in this state that in black communities there's an extra level of vigilance that's necessary. We all know that black communities are policed at a higher rate than others, and so more mistakes are likely to happen because, let's face it, if people are going to make mistakes, they're going to make it where they're policed. So we've got to get past that and get to the point that we expect vigilance in our communities, no matter what you say about what you call your law, or no matter what role you stand, we have to be careful in this community. Well, there should be an expectation.
LeBron, this is where me, you, and Mo, we step up and we start instituting community policing. So we want to go back to the old days where we police our own neighborhoods until they get to a certain point. Then we handcuff a guy to the fence and let the police come get him. But if we start taking care of our own, if we have honor amongst us, if we treat each other with respect, then there's a lot of things we can do. We have to do that. Barbara got to know when she walk out the house at 10 o'clock in the night to walk to the store to get a loaf of bread that she's in our neighborhood, that she's safe no matter what. Trina don't need to have to be with me to feel safe. Once we take care of each other and our women, everything falls into place, and we don't have to call in the outside system for little bitty things.
That's
because
exactly
we've
right.
got that under control. So what we've got to do as men, and this is purely sexist, ladies, no disrespect, y'all, but as men, we have to demand more from every man in our neighborhood. If he don't want to be a part of the system, guess what? His ass need to go, or we need to call him out. But this is where we got to do. Once we, and people say, "Oh, well, how you do this?" Once you call somebody out, most people will stand up because they don't want to get called out again. If they don't want to be a part of it, get them out the neighborhood. I mean, that's how the old neighborhoods work. The OGs didn't let certain things happen, and we didn't have problems like this with the police en masse. It was when they left those sacred grounds of our apartment complexes that they had the police, because they weren't coming in the hood to patrol because they weren't welcome. But we had more control. This is some of the things that we have to start doing. We have to explain to Jeremy, hey, we can't do this in the neighborhood. The kids who are smart, hey, nobody touches them. We're gonna send them to school. They're gonna come back. They're gonna be activists. They're gonna be part of our political system to help us get there. This is where I gotta teach. I gotta talk to Jeremy and let me talk to his friends about why they should join the police department. If you truly want to make a difference, you have to be an infiltrator so you know what's going on. So when you see injustice, you can call it out, or better yet, you can tell somebody else so they can call out. Even if I'm sorry, I ain't gonna do it no more. Even if Jeremiah just feeds me information so I can get up on my platform and say, hey, this is what's going on, and this has got to stop. I said I became a cop for the wrongest of reasons. I stayed when I saw how much I could help my community, how I could educate them. When Mo wrote a book, and me and Mo ain't had a long conversation, but Mo has a certain distrust of police, and I partially understand why. And this is where, when I put myself out, I have to let people, I have to take all their attacks, because I do understand it. I've been profiled, I've been pulled over, hell, I've been chased. All this is while I was working undercover, so I do understand. The good part for me was I knew what my remedy was, and I knew how to fix it. But how do I get Jeremiah to understand how to fix? How do I get Barbara to go the right route? And this is why we get in the plans of action, so that we can make things happen. So that if Barbara don't know, Barbara say, hey, D, this is what happened. What should we be looking at? Jeremiah say, hey man, one of my friends just got this. What should I do? Before we go tearing up stuff and burning down people's houses, what's the plan? And I'm saying, Jeremiah, this ABC, do these steps, and then let's go forward.
And here's the beauty of it, is there's so many different things. Like you said when we first started the show, we all have so many different avenues that we can attack this problem that you can't miss. What we can't do is get frustrated when the particular avenue you tried this time doesn't necessarily work. Right. Either stick with that one or join someone else's on their quest in that particular avenue. But it's not going to be an overnight thing. So we
don't stop working. Just keep working towards the goal. And pull young people in. You've had him. You guys are older, and I'm still medium old. But pull the young people in as well, so that young people take information better from young people. And if you get them to trust you, they'll get information from you that they can impart to other young people. And that I think that's a really good way to get information out. Because, like you said, I don't remember talking to kids about voting. It's just not anything. But you want to assume that they should know to do it, and they don't. I mean, most people just talk about the presidential vote, like I said, and people don't know the integral things about voting and what that affects, how it affects the police department. Just all kind of things that affects with voting, the judicial. Just everything. And we need to the goal should be to get information out. To get
answer.
And Roy, what's the video we play? Roy is about, what's his name? Yellow Pain.
Yellow Pain.
And see that needs to be a theme for us, because it explains it with a beat, which means we'll get it and hum it. Jeremiah, have you seen the video of Yellow Pain?
I'm not sure. I don't think I have. If I have, I may have. I don't recall.
It should be. It should be standard for your age group because it tells how the whole process works. But this is where we got to educate each other so that when we protest, when we got demands, we can make sure they're realistic in how they should work. This is where you have your council of elders. When Jeremiah and his boys go out, and Jeremiah called me, he said, "Hey, D, this is what we're thinking about doing. Does this make sense? Is this legal?" And he can get that insight. Because they're going to do their thing. They're going to be wanting to march at 2 o'clock in the morning. My Geritol Wolf, I need to sleep. But they need to do what they're doing, and we need that energy, and we need that continued education. This is where Mo come in with his information and intellect, and he get his people. And this is where we all can contribute to the bigger picture, and we all become agents of change because we can't keep talking. How many times can we be mad
it's all about.
before you become desensitized? You know, I saw what happened, and you know, it's crazy. I saw it, and I was so desensitized because I'm looking at, from my perspective, I'm looking at ways he can get off. I'm looking at ways it can be explained. And people say, well, you always defending cops. No, I'm just trying to figure out how they can beat the system because I want to know the system. You're looking at the act. I'm looking at what bred the act. And this is where we have to come together as a collective because we see something different, and we have to be able to speak and say, well, what about this? What about this? You know, LeBron them, like I said, he said I trained him for worst case scenario. And what's happening now with a lot of cops, they never get trained for this. So the first time they hit conflict, they have no clue as to what to do. Because somewhere along the way, they decided it was better to have a college graduate versus somebody who had customer service experience. And the difference, people who had customer service experience were used to people being irate and being yelled at. I ain't got nothing against college people, but when do you really go through that scenario where somebody yells at you and get up in your face and you know all they doing is talking? College people don't get that experience unless they had a customer service job. So we wanted a smarter cop. Yes.
But Darren, check this out though. You're hitting on a very excellent point right now, because when people talk about what can we all do right now in these local elections, in these local situations, you know that the police in your area are made up of a certain type of cop, right? Everybody that lives in the community understands the culture of that police department. Right. And you all know whether or not that culture works in your department. Darren, you and I talked about this before. Some environments, a more militaristic, robotic style of police officer is more efficient. For example, high traffic areas. So it's more about traffic control. So you want those guys to keep stuff moving, right? Other areas may not need that. They may need somebody that's more of community police. And you know your area. You know if your police department is adequate. And if it's not, you should be yelling that from the rooftops. After you come home from the protest, then you tell everybody else around you that the police in our particular neighborhood are not adequate for our community.
So let me respond to that, because that's a good point that you just made there. You know, the one thing that I've been trying to figure out is, you know, one thing that makes a bad police officer is the inability to compartmentalize, because you have to deal with a whole bunch of different types of people, a whole bunch of different situations. You know, if you go into a gun call, rather you go into a domestic violence call, you got to be in a different mode. But there's some officers that just stay in one mode. They stay in one mode, and that is what gets people killed. That's what gets people hurt.
It's called survival, though, because if you think about it, the same thing applies if there was a military person. So that's where reform comes in, because we should really have officers that are working for 30 days and whatever rotation they work, and they're off and regular people for 30 days. Why is that so far-fetched?
So the thing is this, though. If you stay in that one mode, though, you can't deal with somebody who's, you know, if it's a. So look, they got the 911, then they got the non-emergency police number, right? Two different things, two different reasons to call those different numbers, right? So we need the same thing in the community, because if I'm doing traffic stops, I won't get into that. I know what y'all gonna say on that one. Yeah, I know what you mean by survival. I get that, because I done the research. I understand, but you know, in certain, I know it's tricky, right? It's not easy, man. It's not black and white. I understand y'all it was a tough job, man. Police have a tough job, but there are certain situations that don't require the escalation. That's just my point. That's my point.
I think we have to. I'm sorry, DV. What I was gonna say is, I think we just have to have a standard. Is what it comes down to. Right. Whether that's law enforcement, whether that's community policing, or whatever you want to have it, there needs to be a standard, and it needs to be made very clear. Gregory said in the video he did one time, he said, you're going to have to make police officers choose whether they hate niggas more than they love feeding their family. And that's just really what it's got to come straight down to. Exactly. You hate me more than you want to have a job. Point blank period. And once we start to put that standard in place, and we have departments and systems that uphold that and say, look, I understand you have a job to do. I understand it's tough. I understand all those things. Because I agree, it is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to be a law enforcement officer, especially in 2020. Because right now, the last thing you want to say is that you're a police officer. But
just this week,
right? But on that same token, African Americans and people of color have felt that it's been hard to be a citizen for the last 400 plus years.
400 years, absolutely.
So when it comes down to it, there has to be a standard in place, whether you're a law enforcement officer or you're a member of the community. Because I know I buck on anybody. If I see you disrespecting a woman, it's on site. What's up?
So here's the beauty of it. So Darren and I have the privilege, and really not call it a privilege, we have a privilege of being able to have been both. And so we're able to see from a real bird's eye perspective exactly how this whole thing looks. Because it's not always as black and white as it's racially motivated with that particular officer. A system in place where these officers do what they do happened way before this guy showed up. Right? And that's the part, that's when we fell asleep at the wheel. Is when those guys were coming into it. If you guys remember about it, think back, and Barbara, maybe you can speak to this in California, there was a mass recruiting effort way back in the 40s, 50s, and the 60s to bring Southern white racists from the South to California so that they could police and control, quote unquote, the black problem in California. As a result, you see more police brutality in a place like California where you would think is so liberal and so well versed and so cultural. Yet you still have. That's because the culture never got uprooted.
The LAPD is rife with just terrible people in it. You know, the Rampart Division was under investigation for years because they had so many police that were on the tape, robbing people, had people, paying them money for, protection, just all kind of stuff that they were doing. And that was part of the culture. And people knew about it, but they did nothing, they did nothing about it. But one point I have about policing and stuff like that, and you guys, I know you guys ex-police, but when you have something where we're, in the last couple of days, we've had the protesters because a police officer got killed, but then you sit on TV and watch a police kick a girl in the face, and you go, why don't the other officers respond? Like, I would jump on his back if I was in the crowd and get beat up, of course, but why? That's such a problem for me, the culture that you can watch him and the girl's sitting there with her hands cupped and he kicks her in her face. Why would that ever happen? And why would you get the hell beat out of you on site, like right at that moment? Why wouldn't another officer? I couldn't imagine liking my job that much, and I do have children to feed, but I'd be without a job. My conviction.
I'm gonna answer that for you. Let me get to something Jeremy brought up first. And we were talking about community policing. Why community policing in theory doesn't work is because we don't put enough police into one community. It's good to think that I could be a community police, but if I buy a house there, you know what happens? I never get any rest because people want to keep coming to my door. Community policing will work, but you have to have at least 5 officers, and that's not the way the system is set up to give them that. So what happens is you overburden one officer, and then he just becomes tired, and he doesn't want to do it anymore because nobody wants to be on duty 24 hours a day. Because now, as a community police officer, if I want to date somebody, everybody watching me. Everything I'm doing is under a microscope.
They'll be all in your business.
Right. So community policing, as good as it sounds, it wasn't good for the officers' mindset or his, because he could never relax because everything he did was under scrutiny. But to what Barbara was saying, and when we talked about this, even in the Minnesota case, and this is a scary thought, and people saying they sat there and watched the whole thing. Well, and I shared this with LeBron last night. Well, they've had over 50 complaints about this, and nothing has been done. This is a system. This is systematic within the Minneapolis Police Department.
Has been for years.
So why would they think anything was different? This is what they've been doing, so they had no reason to panic. Minnesota teaches this as a control technique. So there was nothing for those guys to respond to because they've seen it. They've seen officers do it and nothing happened. So what we saw as private citizens ain't the same thing that they saw. That's like, shit, we did this just last week. They did
it all the time.
Right. So, and this is the thing. Well, we all blame the officer for it. Well, if this has been a pattern of behavior, and I'm going to pick on Mo again.
He's responsible for the act.
But if Mo child come home every day and break a glass, and Mo don't say nothing to that child, then Mo's son comes to my house and breaks a glass. I'm like, what the? And he's like, I do it all the time. So I'm upset.
Responsible for the act.
Right, but understand this. This is how police training works. Culture and customs. If you let me do something repeatedly and you never admonish me for it, that means it becomes the rule of law. So if
that's
we
your
control,
rule, but it's not the rule of law.
That's the system. When you do it and nobody gets punished, and we can talk as citizens, and this is why police unions are so strong, because this has been going on with 58 cases. We can prove that this is something that Minneapolis has allowed for the past 10-15 years. So what he did was customary. Customs override laws in politics.
So they gave him the implied authority. No, they gave him the authority to do that. Are you saying?
Yes.
That was something different.
Yes.
The whole doing that is fine, but once you complete that act and you kill somebody, you are responsible for that. Now the system is responsible for allowing you to do it, but everybody's going down. Everybody's
I think that's where a big source of contention comes in. That I know for my age group, this is how a lot of people in my age group and that I'm around see it. You said the word system at least 15 times, and I think for myself and others, that's exactly where we're at with it. As we don't just want the one officer fired, we don't want just the 4 officers fired. We want all 4 of them gone, and we want a whole redo of the system. Because and to DVP's point, it is a very valid statement. That's the same whether it's law enforcement, whether it's a basketball team, whether it's your job at Crystal's flipping burgers. If you see one person come in late every day of the week, then another person come in late every day of the week, for long, your whole team gonna start coming in late because it's gonna be seen as acceptable. And so the issue that I have, and that most of us have, is it that we just think that that officers as a whole are just bad, but the system that the officers are in is bad. And if that system is bad, then it can turn a good officer or someone we inherently say, oh yeah, that person would have spoke up. I know him 5 years ago. He would have never let that happen. Well, he's in a system that allows for it to happen, and I think that's where we have to look at starting to redo the entire system and really start making statements. I think it was a joke. I want to say it was the police chief that got on television and said, "Oh, this is such an atrocity. I'm so hurt by it." Nah, fam, you capping. Because at this point, you've seen a pattern. This isn't the first time. It's not like, and I guarantee if we start looking at all the other officers, if they regularly work in the same shifts, this is not the first time their names have come up. Because I know when I ran with my homeboys, typically if I was doing something reckless, they was right there with me doing something reckless. So to act surprised like you never heard of it or this is the first is where that has to stop. And I think that the only solution, aside from just going out here guns a-blazing, which I don't necessarily think that's not the tactic we're going to get to just yet.
You want to, you feel like it, but you can't.
But you know what I mean? So the next step is, I think, economics. Okay, here's where we're at with it. Start suing the insurance companies that insure the officers. Start suing the city. Start suing the state. And then continuously hit them in their pockets. And then on top of that, take the winnings from those lawsuits and start funding our own individuals that we put up and make it very clear. We're not gonna do this song and dance, voting 28,000 times a year and all this. We ain't doing all that song and dance. Here's what it is. We funded you. We provided you a lifestyle. These are the results we expect. You can't provide. You can't get those resorts. You can't get those results. Good to me. Put our funding. You got this amount of time. Get some results or lose your funding.
I have a question. I have one quick question. Did they open a civil rights investigation on the Minneapolis police? I thought I heard that they opened an investigation for the police department.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
But me and Jeremiah talked about this yesterday, because I watched the police chief sit there and say all the politically correct things, but he never said we're going to look at our policies and change them. He never took he pulled a 45 on us. He didn't take no accountability or responsibility for firing that guy or keeping that guy. So all he did was like, yeah, I'm gonna pray for y'all. What I saw was heinous, but it wasn't heinous enough for me to change my policies or review them. He never made that statement. So all he did was tell us what we wanted to hear. We failed for it, and so these 4 guys get fired, but I guarantee those 4 guys
are responsible too.
Right, but I'm saying those 4 guys didn't have all them 58 complaints. I bet were against more than those 4 guys. So the other 50 guys who doing it, they're still there, and new guys coming out of school gonna still see that same system because they're gonna say, "Oh man, don't worry about that. We've been getting away with this." So we have to attack whole systems, not just the lowest man on the totem pole. Because if I don't address more about his badass child, and I don't say nothing, Mo gonna be like, you ain't never tell my child was over there breaking glass, because I think Mo ain't gonna do nothing. We have to attack the whole system. When we get BS, which is why we need the citizen review boards. We talked about it. Let's look at policies. Does the policy say that? Because we was watching the news this morning. There are 14 states that allow chokeholds. 14 states, not departments. There are 14 states that allow chokeholds. We don't know. I teach. If you touch somebody on the neck, that's the same as using deadly force. You cannot put your hands or knees on their neck for nothing unless you are about to die. As a control method, it's never happening. And I'm stunned because I'm thinking all 50 states don't use the neck and the back, but they just 14 states. And my training don't mean nothing now.
So here's the other thing too, though, Darren. So on one hand, you're absolutely right. That's an expectation from citizens. But here's from police. But here's the thing that citizens have to understand too: the heavier police a neighborhood is, the more likely mistakes will happen. And and nobody's expecting a police officer to be perfect, because nobody's perfect. So even the one that's not racist, we throw race in there because we know that there's some racial element. We just haven't put our finger on what it is. It's got nothing to do with that officer. It might have everything to do with that officer. But in reality, why are they there? Why are they there?
LeBron, why could you go to neighborhoods by yourself? How come I see Robert is on here? How come I can go to the hood by myself? Again, it's the presentation of what you do. Don't get me wrong. There were times I was totally afraid when they was doing that shooting, and I got on my PA and said, "Hey, it's me. If y'all gonna keep shooting, flash the lights, and I will leave. This shit is not that serious." But at some point, you have to. I need for Jeremiah's people to know, hey, that's Bill. Let him come through. He don't mean no harm. Right. And I need for them to be able to have that one-on-one interaction and know, hey, I locked up we played football together, me and Robert. I locked up people who turned themselves into me because they knew I wasn't gonna do nothing to them. We need to have that, but they need Jeremiah's crew, Mo's crew, Barbara crew. They need to know that if something happens, hey, I'm still get a fair shake. I ain't got to worry about getting shot. I ain't got to worry about getting killed. DV ain't gonna hit me in the head or none of that stuff. But that's again where we have to have systems in place with checks and balances, that if an officer does something under the color of law, if it is akin to a forcible felony, action needs to be taken within 72 hours. If it's just, and I hate to say, a regular complaint, then you got time to do an investigation. Because what we saw in Minnesota was heinous by any standard.
By any standards.
But looking at it from police eyes, knowing what I know about police
even policies, from police eyes, that was horrible.
Yeah, but looking at a policy, it was acceptable. The police chief accepted it. I would say any department that allows chokeholds is unacceptable. But
it may have been acceptable until he was unconscious and you stayed on there for 3 more minutes.
But that's what they're supposed to do. When the policy says this is how you get them to submit. This is why they have. Some lady explained.
How much more submission can you get from a person who's knocked out? I mean, how much more? What you looking for? So, days, weeks? What you looking for?
Which is why, and I tell people, the reason why cops can't pronounce people dead on the scene, because we're not professionals. His head can be detached from his body. All we can legally say is he's unconscious, head detached from body.
He fell.
Right. So you shouldn't put us in a position where we can judge whether or not somebody's unconscious. That's why the other states don't even do it. So why would you even have that policy in place? And you're right. Again, you don't have to, but once the policy exists, and this is where we have to understand the mindset. You're asking me to be a doctor or paramedic in addition.
I'm not asking you to be decent. I'm asking you to be decent as a police officer. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking you to be a doctor, perform surgery on me like y'all try sometime. I'm just asking for you to do your job, restrain the person if they're fighting you, and then do what you need to do, because he wasn't fighting. So that should have stopped like 3-4 minutes in.
Well, the thing is,
they should have stopped. You dead? He was already dead.
He should have never been brought out. He should have never been taken out the car. Hell, we're gonna go back to it. The police should have never been called.
We're not even talking about that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about him subdued on the ground.
Right. So he should have never been
on the ground. Any fight has stopped.
Because as I look from a police eye, LeBron, you were a marshal. When does a counterfeit bill ever require 3 officers? A counterfeit bill, and I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Let's jump into that.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at all the different aspects to try. how did
I
this
just think
how did
there's
this get to
a
be?
piece that we're missing. I think there's a piece
Right,
intertwined in this that's missing.
and that's what I try to. That's why I say when people ask me initially, I'm just waiting because some of this makes no sense. I mean, if I pull Jeremiah over for a broken tail light, why do I have 4 cars with me? That makes no sense in the big picture.
Let me jump in real quick. I want to say something real quick. I haven't said
Go ahead, Mo.
in a minute. No, that's Roy.
I'm sorry.
See, yeah, you ain't heard my voice. You'll never talk to me, but you know.
I don't see you on the screen.
Yeah, I took myself off because I wanted to make sure Trina was going to be on, but not down at the bottom, and she took the camera off. And I'm not going to say nothing to her about that either.
Talking.
It's two things that I want to say about it. One, what everybody's saying, because of course we have come to know that apparently these two knew each other. Right. They worked together for 17 years. We also know that Floyd fired him at a certain point. That information apparently has been verified that he fired him from the job that they worked at together. I said from the beginning, Darren, I think I told you this. I said from the beginning that as casual as he was in this situation, it looked to me as if they knew each other. That anybody who does any type of psychology was saying he was not. This wasn't something that you do to somebody you have no idea of who they are, especially for something as little as that, a $20 bill. But here's the other thing that I wanted to say, because this point to go back and listening to the back and forth that you guys were just having. Barbara, here's something that we got to understand that people hate to hear, and we talk about it. And I know Dee's mentioned it a lot of times. We look at logic, and we look at what we consider to be common sense, and we get emotional when people don't have it or don't seem to exhibit it during the times that we think they should. But the reality of law is this: it is not what's right in a court of law. It is not what is true. It is what can be proven and what the standard of the law says. This is why the whole process about having the process changed, having the laws changed, is such an imperative piece. Because you can't, any lawyer will tell you, Yolanda, if you still on here, do you go into the thing telling your client, we know that we are right in this case? Or are you going into your client, or going into the case telling your client, okay, this is what we can prove that they did. This is the law that we can prove that they broke. And that's what we have to do. We understand that it's aggravating. We understand that it is frustrating and that it pisses you off. But what ends up happening, again, it's the same thing. It's and I tell people, because it's the easiest thing to use is the Trayvon Martin case, because Greg and whatever the dude is, I know his name starts with a Siobhan or something like his last name. That is going to be easy, because now they've stated that they're going to probably look at charging him with murder, wanted, intent, because again, there is a prior relationship and something that we know has happened between the two of them. So now there's an opportunity to possibly prove that. But in Trayvon's case, we have to get people off the street. We have to make sure that these officers are able to be charged. I guarantee you, if you look at the charges that were filed against all of these officers who killed black people and got off, I guarantee you every last one of them was overcharged with something that they should not have been charged for. Every last one of them.
It pleased our hearts for them to be overcharged, and that's why we got caught up.
And that's where we lost, and that was the exact moment we lost it. Because Darren, we were doing the show at the time, and as soon as I saw them say that they were going to charge George Zimmerman with murder one, I said he's going to get off. I'm like, there's no way to prove intent on somebody that you don't know. That.
Let me ask you guys. Let me ask you guys a question though. So we were right to argue about these semantics. But if everybody has been rioting, let's say for sake of argument that this maneuver that this officer used on Mr. Floyd was a part of their policy and their practice, and every single person has been rioting and protesting and using the blackout on social media, if all of these people, myself included, were aware that this was a part of their policy, don't you think we could have had that change before he died? So the idea is not to get caught up on how the system is necessarily treating us, but how we're using the system to effectuate change. Because right now we don't even know whether or not that's true or not. We just know that he did something to the guy and George died. We don't know if that was policy.
So let me
this
add
is
to
where we
that.
hold the DA responsible. This is where we hold our civic rights people responsible. The DA has seen some of these cases, and the DA from the Baltimore case was on TV this morning, and she was talking about why she couldn't prosecute, and she specifically talked about how strong the police unions were, because we don't. Nobody talks about how easy it is with what's in place. And I was just telling somebody, I sued the sheriff's department. I sued them. So you know what that meant for the rest of my career? They couldn't touch me. You know why? Because anything they did was going to fall under retaliation. I was protected for the rest of my career just because I won a lawsuit. When we fire people erroneously or for the wrong reason or do something else and they get their money back, they become untouchable. I was the worst employee some days just because I knew they couldn't bother me.
I can imagine.
I could come to work 2 hours late and they're like, you late. I said, what you gonna do, write me up? That's retaliation because other people been late, and I use that for almost everything. So when we do stuff, if we don't have a standardization, if we don't have citizen review boards, if I don't have Mo looking over policies and saying, hey, this don't make sense. Trina don't say, hey, this don't make sense. And we need to tweak these, and they just keep going on and on and on, and we wait till somebody die, then it's kind of on us. Because how long we been going through systematic racism and oppression, Jeremiah? 400 years? When are we going to stop singing Kumbaya and We Shall Overcome and start reading? And start saying, hey, this has got to change. This makes no sense. We can read, ain't none of these hidden. We can read these things with the same energy. There are a bunch of intelligent Jeremiahs around. There are a bunch of intelligent Mo. They just need to be directed. Like I said, we talked for damn near 3 hours. And, every time I got the phone, he was like, no, man, I'm enjoying this. I didn't know some of this stuff. So I'm giving him more things that he can put on his belt to start looking up. And this is what we got to do. Everybody who wants it loves knowledge, especially when you tell them something they don't know, because we got our own set of stuff. The reason I like having you and Trina around, because y'all can tell me things that I never imagined from a girl's perspective. Mo, I've been trying to get on the show forever. Mo wrote a book. We talk about the differences in being police and being a police. So Mo was saying some things, and people Trina told me about the incident she had with the police. The police were dead wrong. You know what Trina didn't know? Trina didn't know who to complain to.
Right.
So there was a whole misgap. Right. So that they may do, because I ain't gonna never say all police are good. But had Trina known me and I told her the process, Trina could have made a change right then. And I'm using her because she's my girl and I can. But Trina didn't file a complaint. And not good, bad, or indifferent. It was because she didn't know the whole process or how to get over the humps. This is where we have to talk to people. And this is where when people inbox me and they send me stuff and I got to read all these damn states. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I read your state policy before I comment. And well, why you saying this is what the law says? And I'm not asking you to like what I'm telling you. I'm just telling you legally what it says your possibilities are. And like I said, Mo is in Arizona. If Mo tell me to look at something, I got to look up theirs and say boom, 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 boom. Real quick, I saw the thing where they upgraded the charge of second-degree murder, and people like, why? And I looked at it. Second-degree murder makes sense, and they give the greatest example. If it's second-degree murder, and Trina, I'm gonna use you again. If I walk in on Trina having an affair and I beat the guy to death, it wasn't intent. He did die. So second-degree murder is more of a crime of passion, which is where he is. He didn't mean for it. We can't prove that he meant for the guy to die. We can't prove that was premeditation. We can prove it wasn't an accident. Because, and this is where I tell people, don't get caught up on the neck. Get caught up on the back. They stopped him from breathing, which is what that boa constrictor move was. When he put his knee on his back, he prevented his chest from rising and falling as it normally would. That's what starts suppressing his air. And he completed a total movement by becoming a boa constrictor. That's all he did. We have to look at all of that, the heinousness of the crime, and hope that the judge will fall for and be pissed and say, hey, because of the heinousness of the crime, we're going to sentence you to the max. We ain't going to give you the mandatory minimum of 2 days and 6 weeks, 2 days and 6 hours. And this is where we got to have control, anger, and demand what we want based on this. Yeah, this is this. But yeah, mandatory minimums ain't going to work in this instance. And you can't punish him for everybody else. We got to punish him for him, because if we punish him for everybody else, that's a whole nother issue. But this is what we gotta stay focused. Like I say, Mo, I want you to talk more. That's the reason I got you here, bro. Don't start nothing. Mo wrote a book.
I want to jump in. I want to jump in and talk about what LeBron was talking about because I think he was headed towards oversight, police oversight, right? So this I want to talk about that because here's the thing. This is something I got in my book, right? If you think about food and drugs, who regulates food and drugs? FDA, federal, right?
Right.
If you think about the airline industry, who regulates the airline industry? FAA, federal. Who regulates police departments? Internal affairs.
The police.
Internal affairs, right? So now you think about it, right? Does that sound like a conflict of interest or not? So why is there not a federal body that oversees the police departments, right? Because now here's the thing. You know, if you was a doctor, right? If you was a doctor and you killed somebody every few days, you know what I'm saying? Somebody will come in and be like, listen, you gone, brother. You got to go. You can't be in here killing people. So why is it okay for this to happen in a police department? You can't make that many damn mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
We're not commanding it.
No oversight.
We're not commanding it as a people.
No
exactly.
Oversight.
So we got to figure out that oversight policy, man. Because I know where you was going. Because I'm like all on that. I'm trying to figure out.
And that's one of the things that should be top of the list.
Right, and that's what we talked about at the beginning. Is having a federal level. Every time an officer is involved in a death, the Fed should come in, not the state. The Fed should come in automatically to investigate it because you don't have no control over them.
They should have a body, a certain body to do that.
Federal has to come in. You know why? Because
it should be mandatory.
Here's the structure, right? This is what Jeremiah was talking about. The structure is this way, right? Look, when there's a bad guy or there's somebody bad that the DA has to go and put in jail, they go into the same people that you're asking me to prosecute. Those are my friends, man. I know them. I go to those people. I'm going to the police and say, listen, go capture this dude, right? So look, we got a relationship, right? And the DA got a relationship with who? The judge. So there's a system that supports the treachery that can occur. All right, so yeah, it's already built and structured. All right, so there's a whole systematic thing that we need to change, just like what Jeremiah was saying. So when I was studying and I was looking at all these different things, I saw all the connectivity, and I'm like, man, that's why it happens.
Yeah, it's right.
So, but here's the other thing to think about. To Roy's point, though, we have to remember also that politics can trickle up. So even though federally, yes, there should be some oversight, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't have to wait until somebody else comes up with this grand idea.
Oh, right.
Start forcing that issue on a local level. So each of us go to our local municipalities and ensure that there's some oversight process. And if they don't have one, then hey, this is an issue. Before I vote for the next whoever, can we make sure that this police jurisdiction has a citizen oversight committee for our community? And if that doesn't happen, that's our interest. And then let's trickle that up. Let's trickle that from municipality to municipality to state level, then so forth and so on. You don't have
I'm gonna change your wording. Not can they? How long will it take before we enact it? Because every time I say something, I talk about the citizen review board. I talk about how the police body needs to be federal oversight. I hate police unions. They have done some good, but based on their bylaws, they are bound. They have to protect bad officers too. They don't discriminate, and it sucks. It sucks. That's why I got out, because this cop is bad, but because he's paid his dues, you have to defend him if there's a glitch in the system. And please, as a glitch doer, I understood that. I still didn't like it. I didn't want to be associated with that, because there are too many times, like I said, they're going to defend these guys from APD. You know why? Because they were fired without due process. They're going to get their money back. They're going to get promotions. They're going to be back on the department within 18 months. And the one time I done talked to all y'all about, except for Mo, you know what we don't do? We never call officers' names. So when they come back, we don't remember them. We don't remember who killed Tamir Rice. We don't remember who killed Eric Garner. So these officers come back, and we don't even remember that they've been there before, because there is no system in place for that. We have to do better. We have to make their lives as uncomfortable as they have made ours for the past 200, 300, 500 years. Why don't we call? I mean, we know Zimmerman and McMichael now because they're the latest, greatest. But when I ask who killed Eric Garner, nobody knows. So that officer living his best life.
Daniel Pantalona.
But I'm just saying, we don't call them out on a regular basis. So when they after they spend their year waiting for their court case come up, they get their little 6-figure check. They come back to another agency as a chief, major, or even mayor. We don't even know anymore.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, LeBron.
Go ahead, bro.
This is kind of where I'm back to where I'm at with the conversation of, all of this is wonderful, but until you change the system itself that allows for these things to happen, then okay, because what happens is exactly right. When you're asking somebody to prosecute somebody they've been friends with for 10, 15 years, when you're asking a judge to look at this person and say that X, Y, and Z things have happened and they've been working with this person for so many years, it becomes a difficult thing for them to do. And what I think we need more of is psychology within law enforcement, because basic psychology would tell you that we all have implicit bias. So when people start making this first holler that, it wasn't race motivated, it wasn't this motivated, that's a lie. Everything we do is based on the experiences that we've had in our life, the things we've seen, the things we've been involved in. So whether or not you can say, you might not be able to just say someone is an outright racist. Okay, sure. But I guarantee you that if a majority of the people that you stop have been a person of color and you had a negative experience, the next person that you stop, you're going to automatically assume, based on your life experiences and the things that you've been involved in, that this is going to be a negative experience. For instance, myself, quite a few of the experiences I've had that were negative with law enforcement were with white officers. So when I see a white officer, my initial response is, "Oh, you want some smoke today? Okay, cool. Let me just go and make sure that I ain't been. Let me make sure I'm crossing all my T's, I'm dotting all my I's. I said yes, sir. I looked you in the eye. I didn't fidget. I didn't do any of those cues. It's your reason why you feel like now your life is in danger, so called. So I think that as soon as we start to work with more transparency, more clarity, and stop dancing around and shucking and jiving for people, we can actually get something done. I think that, I agree. There's a lot of things that Darian he blew my mind last night talking about, just like, okay, I didn't know this was a certain thing. I didn't know this was a certain thing. But I also think that the people that we're saying we're paying as taxpayers that are elected officials, they get paid to know that. I mean, it may sound ignorant as me as a citizen not to know, but quite frankly, it's your job to know. I know my job. What I get paid for every day, I know it in and out better than anybody.
Knowing it and doing it is different.
So here's what we do have to do, though. Trust is the most essential element to authority. In order for me to have authority over my family, my house, my children, whatever, that person or that group of people that I have authority over have to trust that I'm not going to abuse it. And so what we have to do as citizens is we have to clearly identify what part of what this officer or this department is doing is violating my trust. Is it the response that's violating my trust? Is it how they present? Is it the authority itself? Is it the end result of when they show up? What is it that's violating my trust? We have to identify that. It's going to be different for everyone, but that's going to be your interest. So when you start talking about voting power, that's when it really matters, is identifying what are your common interests.
So hold up, hold on, DVP. Let me run this. We about to start a movement right now. This is the movement. Check it out. We gonna call this the Joe Biden Challenge. All right, this is what we're gonna call it. Everybody is gonna go post the Joe Biden Challenge. Here it is. You want the black vote? Give me your 12-point plan to fix police brutality. All right, everybody post it. This is social media is ridiculously powerful, and y'all know that. If we post it and it trickles down and it gets out there, we got the Joe Biden Challenge out there. Let's see what this brother gonna do. Cause
tag his campaign page. Tag his page.
See here, hold on. Let me jump in. Hold on. Let me say something because this is part of the challenge. This is part of what I've seen is the problem. As somebody who's a political consultant, I've been doing it for over 25 years. We have to stop asking other people what their plan for us is. No other group of people ask politicians, what is your plan for us? No, we're not going to ask him what he wants to do for us, for what he's going to do as a 12-point plan. We're going to tell him what the hell we want them to do. That's why we were saying when I did my thing, and Mo, I'm going to make sure I hit you with a friend request. I'm going to shoot you the link to my 12-point plan just for the community, and we've got different pieces in that. We have to start dictating to these people what we want. I'll be, just like D said, D's a little older than me. I will be 50 years old this year. My entire life, people in the media, everybody else in the media has been telling us as black people who we are, what we should think, how we should think, what's a valuable black person, what's a non-valuable black person. They have been telling us that. That is where we have been missing it.
True.
We have been programmed. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna tell a real quick story. I'm gonna tell this story real short and quick to get people to understand, because it was the point of my life that changed my entire perspective. I was in high school in an AP English class, and I had to do a biography on a famous black person. I chose W.E.B. Du Bois. Reading one of the books about him, they asked him, the guy who did the book was noticing that he had been the secretary of the group called the Niagara Movement, which later became the NAACP. He was secretary for 4 terms. They asked him, why were you not president? He said, as president, they bring me out for problems. I'm a figurehead. I just deal with stuff, and I'm a socialite. He said, but as the secretary, I control what the people see, what the people hear, what the people know. So I control the people. We have been letting media be used against us and we have not had a strategic and a strong black media force in this country since the mid to early 60s. We have to stop letting them tell us who we are. We have to tell Joe Biden what we want. And believe me, when I released that part of the plan on Friday, all that's in there. I got 3 things that he has to be able to commit to do, at least one of them in his first 100 days in office, to show that he is serious about that. And look, I'm gonna tell you something now. I'm gonna be like, listen, we got this list of 10. Hell, Trump mess around and get 6, 7 of them done before the election. Dude, you might be in trouble. Cause I don't give a damn who does it. Get it done. That's what I want.
So let me ask you a question though, Roy. So let's say whatever presidential candidate says, I agree with 10 of those 12 things. How long do you think it would take before any of those things actually affected your local experience? Unless you have some immediate federal oversight, it's not going to really impact your local experience, right? So even though we have a national platform now that we all can go back into our local communities with the same idea of a 12-point plan for your local communities, that can happen right now, and we feel it right now. Whereas presidentially, there's some other factors involved, and it may not work out the way we're planning. So could that same idea be duplicated locally?
It's already good to see. That's the part of the thing. That's what I was talking about. We've got 10 cities that we're targeting as a network already. We're going to have we have people in those cities who are ready to go. Part of that is setting up our community, pushing the envelope to set up a community review board for police officers and shootings and stuff like that. What we have now, the advantage that we have in this election is that we can dictate some things nationally that can take place. There are several executive orders in our situation that he can sign immediately. Like, that's why I said, if Trump looks at this list, and believe me, they're going to be like, there are 3 things on the list right now that Trump could wake up on Monday morning and be like, damn that, I'm gonna do this one. Do it, bruh. We can do that. There are things that can be done that will have an immediate and long-term impact on our community from the national level. But that's the other piece to our plan, is that if we are not acting in a local sense, we are missing everything. Because again, we want to make that pressure where we can. See, here's one of the things too that we've got to get people to understand, that as we get ready for this election. Like next week, Georgia's in its primary. We got like 5 other states who are doing their early part of their election stuff next week. We had some this past Tuesday that they were pushing people to do. There are still local elections that we can impact across this country that can have immediate impact. I know a young lady running for a magistrate judge in Fayette County, Georgia, right down the street from Atlanta. A black woman running for judge. We've got to put people in these places that look like us, and Barbara's absolutely right. We're going to have this website set up so that you can see who the hell is running where you are. Exactly. What are they talking about? What are they doing? Because that's the beauty of, and this is some political speak. I'm gonna say this though, because this is the beauty of how they get over on us. There is a reason that the national election are spending billions of dollars on media. Because the reality is that if we were to act locally, we're gonna be. That's where the changes are made, like you said. But most people couldn't tell you who was running for judge, who's running for sheriff, unless they have been directly impacted. They don't know that. So I'm gonna jump out of that. But I had to say that. I know D's got some stuff he's getting ready to get into. So,
Roy, if you could you follow up for me? I didn't mean to jump, but I did want to, because I hear that part of the conversation, and I'm just curious. So when we talk about any other group, as you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, do they not pull their dollars together and they make some adequate and swift demands, and it don't take 400 years for some change to happen? Because I mean, it seems like to me the LGBT community, and they do whatever they want to do. I ain't really concerned, but it seems to me that they got their money together and they got some legislation passed real quick. They got things are moving. I mean, it wouldn't be quick in theory of the amount of time. Yes, did it take a little bit of time, but it sure took a whole lot less than 400 years. It sure took a whole lot less than March. A whole lot less. About the head.
But see,
could we not put together a super PAC, put the funds behind it, and say this is who we're putting in these positions. This is what we expect.
Let's talk.
I don't know if I'm overstepping. Tell me, but it seems like
you're not.
That would be what.
That's a whole nother show, because we have to people have to understand the process of PACs, super PACs, and all that kind of stuff, and how they actually impact the system. Because I'm gonna tell you something. We can pull as many folks as we know together tomorrow. We are not going to have the financial resources that the lobbyists for the gun companies have. There are things that are being done, like I said, but that's a whole nother show. So D, I'm not going to get into it, but Jeremiah, we let's talk, because we need to talk. I need to get you on the air so that you can do a show with the millennials or whatever group that is you're in. You 25 something, you my daughter's age. So we need to set you up a show, so like Darren said, so that you can talk to your group of people. So we're going to make that happen.
All right, and part of what I want to say is, part of the reason that I wanted Jeremiah here was because Jeremiah asked an important question, and Trina's still here. She can tell you one of the things that I absolutely hate, like to the bottom of my heart, is defending 45. But Jeremiah asked the question, other than not liking 45, give me 3 reasons why I should vote for Biden. Most people can't come up with 3 reasons that don't include their disdain for 45. And this is where we always get caught at, the lesser of 2 evils. And we have to be able to, we have to start, the best thing about 45 is that he's made most of us a little bit more politically savvy. He's made us bond together like Obama couldn't do. Because now more black people hate him, and hate is a strong emotion than love, because we loved Obama, but he couldn't get us to vote locally. 45 gonna get us to vote. He was great in that. But other than hating him, why do we want to vote for Biden? And that's one of them things to where if Jeremiah is smart enough to ask that question, we've got to have legitimate answers other than even though we can't be racist, other than we don't like that white boy, because we're gonna still vote for one. But it's got to be more than our hates for one somebody. We have to start doing the things that Roy is talking about, that Barbara's talking about, that Mo is talking about. We have to start making realistic demands. How did the LGBTQ move up ahead of us? But they came in there, they came in organizing. All of them didn't agree on everything, which is that dumbass tier we got to stop. But you got to have organization. Your forefront people have got to mean well. It's 8:07. Mo, is that you? It's 8:07, and we need to get ready to ride out. We're gonna continue this show we're gonna continue. They're gonna be a part 2. But one of the things I wanted to make sure we stressed is, most of y'all have seen this little thing about boycotting social media and whatever, yada 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 yada. And I'm with us making a stance. Let's show who we are, but let's do something. Everything we do should have a strategic approach, not just an emotional approach. And I'm gonna put it up. We should not even acknowledge the 4th of July. I ain't saying don't be on Facebook. Be on Facebook, but don't acknowledge their day. That is not our day. Juneteenth is coming up. We need to deliberately, with intent and specificity, buy black and promote that. Blacking out is a great idea. But in reality, all of us are not going to avoid social media. Some of us use this for work. Some of us, this is what we need. Some of this is how we communicate with people. I'm not going to tell Jeremiah, whose son just took over the show. Jeremiah, you might as well just leave your son up. We don't even need you no more. But
hey, I'm not going to tell him. Say he don't care nothing about none of the reform I'm trying to get.
I'm not going to tell him not to post his son's first step, and I know he probably walking, but not to post his son's first step on social media because of the thing. But yeah, let's be, as the thing says, let's be unapologetically black for Juneteenth. And then from July the 4th to that whole weekend, because when I saw that July 7th thing, I thought I was offended. So y'all really want to let us get fat, black, and drink, and then do something when ain't nobody doing nothing. So from the 4th to the 7th, post all you want to, but don't acknowledge that day. Act like it never existed. For all the changes they made, they changing stuff like that. We keep buying into the system. We have to put our foot down, and everything we do has to be with intent, not just happenstance.
Right.
From this year forward, all of us who woke people, Mo Barber, we should have knew that 2 days ago was the anniversary of Black Wall Street burning down. That's something we should have been talking about way before now, because we all woke and we all smart. We've got to be the agents of change. We got to give direction. You know, Jeremiah, they're gonna be doing their thing. But like I said, let's boycott that week and let's make it unapologetically black. Let's not even acknowledge the 4th of July as Independence Day. It's not. It's BS. And these are the things that we can do. And when we talk about them, we have a reason. So it's easier to get people to buy into it. The craziest thing I saw yesterday was everybody saying, "Hey, on June 2nd, let's black out." You know, today June the 2nd. Y'all should have been saying this on the 1st. How are you on social media telling me not to be on
the 28th of last month?
Right.
So hey, Darren, can I tell the young man this one thing? Just y'all keep doing what you're doing, because our generations, if we had it figured out, you wouldn't have to figure it out. And our generations have to make sure we support them and not kill their fire. As long as we do that, then we'll go the right direction, I think.
Which is why he got drafted, because he's been chosen. Whether he like it or not, like everybody else, I never asked him. I just told him he's part of the team. But one of the things I wanted to get out is, and Trina, I apologize. One of the things I wanted to get out about Trina had told me a story about our daughter that I didn't hear until, and I may have ignored it. But tell the story about Zuri.
I was just telling you how we were talking about how hate is taught, how racism is taught. And I was saying how Zuri came home one day and she's like, "Mommy, Liam keeps saying that my skin is black. Liam keeps saying that my skin is black." And I just told her, Liam doesn't know what he's talking about, because your skin is not black, it's brown. And it was just the whole, she didn't know anything about white people, black people. I don't teach my kids that stuff. We're people, and that's that.
And to me, that story hit home, because now what we just found out is we have a race that's being brewed in our midst, because these are things that we don't think about. And I share the post all the time. The only thing that kids hate is naps. Everything else they learn from us.
White children go to school armed and ready. White children go to school armed and ready because they learn. I don't think the parents teach it, but they teach it about how they live. Our children learn the first time somebody calls them a name or if somebody talks about their skin. But white children are already armed by the time they get to school. They already know. We had a child here, 7 years old, a bully, the white bully, told the teacher that he had a gun in his purse. And of course, the black child, I live in a place where we're less than 5% of the population. They went to school, had this little 7-year-old child there questioning him for hours without his parents, because the little white kid knew, gun, black, they'll be here. And that's what he did, because these little kids know, and we don't teach our children. So I didn't want to teach mine, but I don't know if we should, to make them aware of different things and not teach them with a hate part, but so that it's, because my kids, when they came home, each one, every time it happened, came home shocked. Like, so-and-so, Johnny said this to me today.
And
Johnny said he didn't want to play. I can't go to his birthday party because his dad doesn't like brown people.
Right.
Stuff like that. And our kids are just traumatized by that from 5 or 6 years old on. And because white children know.
And it's like you can let them know, but I don't think they can't fully grasp that whole
Not at all.
They can't grasp that. I remember when my oldest was 3. She was in preschool, and I would go to her class sometimes and sit there. There was a badass little white boy. Oh my God, he was so bad. But he just sitting there, he just went around. He's like, "You nigger," and I'm like, "Oh, it's crazy." He was only like 3 years old, but I couldn't explain that to my 3-year-old daughter. She don't understand that.
I think for me, I know something I've started implementing, because I used to be that way as well. Because the way I grew up, my dad was a pastor. I went to a lot of private Christian schools, and it's not a lot of us in those types of environments, at least at the time I went. And so I kind of grew up with that. But what I teach my children now, I don't teach hate, but I do teach them all the awareness, the things they need to be aware of, and more importantly, what they are. So I don't really care about what the other people are, but what you are. And I teach my sons, y'all are black gods.
No
You're
doubt.
excellence. You are the supreme. You're the highest being. You are creators. You are this, that, the third, and whatever else it may be. So by the time somebody does come along, call them a nigga. I mean, okay, cool. What's up? You really want to have this conversation about my history and my people and what we can provide and do? Because I'm prepared to have that. Are you prepared to have that about yours? Because they teach their children, great granddaddy was the first Irishman to ever do that. They teach that. We're not teaching our people that partly because our history was stolen. However, better of what we do know, we have to teach that. I think it's a mandate, it's a requirement. One of the things that empowered me the most was when I started learning about my granddaddy. When I found my granddaddy had one arm, but he was one of the only black tow truck drivers in Austell. He had his own business, he had his own money, and he didn't take nothing off nobody. It changed my whole world. I was like, hold up. So you telling me my granddaddy lived during the epitome of racism, had one arm, which already put him at a disadvantage, didn't finish high school, and he was still a business owner. He still was economically empowered. He owned his house, he owned his land, he owned multiple businesses. Oh no, he's never finna tell me what I can't do as a black man. On God, I promise you, I'm a black man. And we have to teach that to our kids so that this whole conversation of who's inferior and who's not, it ain't even relevant to me, because what you talking about is, I mean, I know what I got going on. You be concerned with what you got going on, I be concerned with what I got going on. And now the next thing is we change these policies, we get our money right, and a lot of this conversation gonna stop, because you can't the only reason people think that they have more power is because we've allowed them to think so. I've never said I was a minority. I don't know why we keep telling people that. I'm not a minority. When you start putting together the power of my lineage, the economic backing I have between the friends, the connections, the relationship I have, I'm not the lesser of anything, that any conversation, in any room that I will ever be in, period.
I just say one thing, just in response to that. People only have as much power as you allow them to have. Just remember that.
All right. With that said, we way past my bewitching hour. So Mo, I know you got to go first. So Mo, give us an outro and tell people how to find you, and what's coming up with you.
Oh yeah, okay. You can find me on Facebook at Mo Triplet. What I do is I got a group, and we talk about relationships. I got another group, we talk about police brutality. We talk about anything you want to talk about. So you know what I mean. You can find us on DBDS Straight Talk. That's the group where we talk about all kind of different things. And then we have just plain DBDS. That's where we talk about just relationships. And my goal is to just help my community grow. Is to help my people get in a much better, a much healthier situation and circumstance, just like we're doing here tonight. The benefit in this conversation is that we share with each other, we share different experiences, and we all grow together. And so that's what I'm looking to do globally.
All right, Trina Marie, go ahead and do yours.
Trina Marie, you can find me on Facebook as Trina Marie. I also have a small business called Little Things by Kalia. I do like custom gifts, glasses, gift boxes, stuff like that.
You got anything to show them right quick?
I do not, I guess.
What about that wine set behind you? That's
I've been drinking
not
out of
totally
this all
finished.
night. I got nice things, got this right here, got some stuff back here. I mean, you can go to my page and check my stuff out.
All right, big brother. I'm sorry, little brother Brian. I'm sorry, Barbara.
Robbie, you can reach me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter all the time. Barbara White on Facebook. On Twitter, I think I'm BJDUBU, and same on Instagram. But it was a pleasure talking to all you guys. I got a lot of good information, and hopefully we'll keep this going, get those points ready so we can see who's going to do what and where we're going to put our support.
We're going to do a part 2 next month.
All right.
LeBrian?
Yes. All right. So you can find me on Facebook, LeBrian Sperlin. You can find me on Instagram, BigSperl98. You can also find me, I actually run Lighthouse Private Investigation Services. And so you can reach me through those venues as well. And lastly, but definitely not least, I sit on the board of Stand Incorporated, which is a nonprofit located in Decatur, Georgia, whose primary goal is recidivism reduction and community empowerment through drug and mental health counseling, treatment, and residential housing. So any resources that you guys are interested in using toward that type of work, any sort of reach, that's the easiest way to find me, because that's where my sleeves are mostly raised. Or rolled up, rather.
That's what's up. And the future, Jeremiah.
I had to excuse me. My 10-month old is just taking over my whole life. But,
That's what kids do.
He don't care nothing about nothing I got going on. Unplugging mics and knocking over like. Anyway, you can find me at Jeremiah Bowtie Woods on Instagram. That's JeremiahBowtieWoods. Jeremiah Bowtie Woods. You can find me on Facebook at Jeremiah Woods. Those are the two best places to reach me. You can reach out to me. I'm always excited to be a part of any conversation, any change that we can make. So.
And what can they find your bow ties at again?
Reach out to me at Jeremiah Bowtie Woods, because at this point I'm only doing custom work, so I'm working directly with people on whatever it is they need made.
All right. And to my super producer, tell them about you and what you got going on and how they can be a part of JBN.
Well, all right. So as D said, my name is Roy Evans. I am the president and CEO of the Jericho Broadcast Networks. Maybe I guess I should put my camera back up while I'm doing this, huh?
So it don't look like I'm talking
right.
without moving my mouth.
Right, you're not sitting there doing some crazy stuff. I'm not sure why my picture didn't show up. Maybe that's because I have it set up. So I'll just put everybody back up. Roy Evans with the Jericho Broadcast Networks. We are here to change the world. That is actually one of our primary hashtags that we use. Change the world. We are stronger together. The plan, I actually put it in the group so everybody who's on the call can take a look if you haven't had an opportunity to see it yet. Like I said, we will be releasing phase 2 of it. I'm going to do that tomorrow because I'm already whipped. I had a busy day today. Phase 3 will be released on Friday. And this is not a new plan. And I think that's the thing that I need people to understand. This isn't something that I woke up and decided to do last month. This is actually a plan that is years in the making. We've been working on this for over 10 years. I've had experience in a lot of different things, but like I said, we haven't had an effective black-owned, black-controlled media in a very long time. That's what we are going to be. We are going to be the voice and the light and the sight for Black America in this country. We're going to be a place for voices of all different types. We're, like Darren says, we don't always agree, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure that people understand. We don't have to agree on everything to put our people in a better position. There are certain things that you are going to need to understand. And the first thing that we tell people walking in the door is check all your personal preferences at the door. This is about the furthering of Black people, because there are some ways that we can handle and make improvements on the systematic racist system and doing a lot of things, but it includes multiple parts and it has different angles that we have to be engaged in. And Jeremiah, yes, that includes from money to everything that we have to do. We've got to make sure that we're working on every front at every time, and that's what we're here to do. And like I said, the beauty of what we will be able to do is that we can touch thousands, if not millions of people across the world if we need to with our broadcast. And actually by Friday, when we do the last part of it, we will be announcing some Juneteenth stuff, D, that we're going to be doing as well. That's going to probably be but it'll be the official soft relaunch of the network. So we're going to be out there and we'll start asking you guys to do some things for us to help push the message. We're going to start off with the stuff that won't cost you nothing. And then, we're going to ask for your money because we can't make a whole lot of changes without some money. So, but you'll always get something positive out of it. Thank you.
And of course, I'm DVP. I'm the host. We have the uncomfortable conversations. We give the uncomfortable answers. But this is what we do. I have a group right now. It's a small group. We're working on some stuff where we're going to be the agents of change. And we're going to come out with plans with defined limits so you know what you're getting. You know what you should be asking for. Just FYI, I'm going to be doing a show about the whole education process in a couple of weeks. I got some educators and teachers and people who have started their own schools so we can talk about how to educate Black people about Black stuff. And even starting a worldwide homeschooling network. So I got 5 educators, and like I said, I have a guy who started his own high school, and it's a private school. So he's coming on to tell us about that. And if it's something you want to talk about, like I said, if I don't know, I will find some people. It ain't that we always got to agree, because we need to understand what we don't understand each other. That's how you get effective communication. So that I can talk about things that you don't know. If we all agree, then I don't need to talk to people to keep agreeing myself. I can talk to myself. This is what we do. Bring people who have questions. We wanna educate as best we can. The reason that I like larger groups is because everybody can add something to the conversation that somebody just may not have known, may not have thought about, or whatever. That's what we do. You can't just take one road and have a single point of failure because you believe one way is going to get you there. To the people who say that having a plan B means you think your plan A won't work, I'm going to tell you right now, you're just kind of retarded. Nothing is foolproof. Nothing. So a plan B and a C never hurts to have it just in case, because life happens. I appreciate all my guests. I appreciate your time and energy. Jeremiah, you know me and you going to talk again because we finna blow up. So you finna get you since I'm a super old man, I'm gonna be a great uncle. You know what I'm saying? I can't just be a regular uncle because I got my ARP card. Ryan, I'm getting with both of y'all. We're gonna make some things happen. I'm gonna let y'all deal with Barbara on your own. Barbara's a hailstorm. And you know, Roy, me and you and JBN, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. We're gonna get your message out there. We're gonna get your platform out there. We are unapologetically black, and we are about the business. I believe in doing right by everybody, but right now, we're more important. I'm gonna keep pushing this, you know, not celebrating the 4th of July. Do what you do because everybody's off. I mean, you know, it's coronavirus, but let's just not even acknowledge that day for what they want us to. Let's go out and do something for June 10th. Let's be unapologetically black. Spend black. Even if you got to spend a couple extra dollars more, spend black and be unapologetic about it.
All right.
D, we gonna bring back the Black Business Dollar Days formula for everybody too.
Like I said, we're gonna have a plan. We're not just gonna talk about it anymore. We're gonna have plans that are sustainable, that we're gonna advise and we're gonna tweak to make sure everybody can do something. And again, the biggest portion that we got to do in all this is make sure we're looking out for the little man who can't afford to do some of the stuff that some of the better off people can do. That way, everybody can feel like they're involved. Everybody. I'm gonna start having some giveaways for people, but I want everybody involved. Don't feel like because you don't make enough money, you don't have a voice. We're gonna speak for you, and we're gonna make sure you get taken care of. 400 years is a lot to overcome, and we ain't gonna overcome it in one day. But I need for Jeremiah and his group to be ready in 3-4 years to take over the world. And the last thing I'm gonna say, Roy, remember we talked about with Ferguson when I did the research on them, and I told them they need to elect a mayor who represented them because they actually control the voting power. They just thought that they didn't because they were told they didn't, but they control. Blacks control Ferguson. They just thought they couldn't, and they were misled. Now they got a black mayor, and she's a female. So you know, thumbs up to them. Y'all know what it is. Peace, popcorn, and chicken grease. Thank y'all for being here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the invite. Good seeing you.